Hey, hello everyone, and we are live. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to the first ever live stream on my channel. I hope you guys are okay. I'm really glad to have a lot of people from Germany. I see a lot of people from France, from the UK, from America, from Canada. So, can you hear me? Can you guys just confirm that everything is fine? The sound, the camera, everything is my very first live ever. So I will be sure that everything is from the technique side is works fine. Okay, great, great. And yeah, my friend Eric, he was intended to join me on the show at the very beginning. He had a personal issue to deal with, so he won't be there. I'm really sad about that, but it's fine. So Eric is a very good friend of mine, and he helped me to create a channel. So he just graduated from his school, sound design, and yeah, he really was really helpful, and he still is. So I'm really sad about that, but no problem. Maybe he will be showing up in the next live. So yeah, very first live ever. It's a sort of like a milestone. I posted my very first video about 1 year ago. I reached 10K views bar, which is pretty fine, and almost 500 subs. So just check earlier on. I'm shy of, I think, 25 subs to reach the 500 subs, which is pretty good. And yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. Really glad. After 1 year of operation, the connections I made, the getaway. I moved from France to Canada 2 years ago, and exactly 1 year after, I decided to start a channel. And the reason behind that was to share my experience as a French collector. I grew up in very close to the border with Germany. I grew up in France, very close to Switzerland, to the Black Forest, Schwarzwald. And yeah, I brought my entire collection over here. And the idea behind was to continue to develop my collection, being staying in touch with all the European people. So I speak German, so I have a lot of connection with the German vinyl community. I have a lot of German friends, and I often participate to live stream with the Germans and with the French, obviously, and with everyone. So pretty cool. I'm pretty happy. I don't have a lot of thousand subscribers or a million subscribers, but it doesn't matter. The thing is, I'm really satisfied with all the people who have been supporting my channel from day one. So starting with Eric, of course, and I would like to mention also a couple of other people. Uh, the first one I'm thinking of is Steve from All the Words Stage. He's been here from day one. Very supportive guy, comments on all my video. He recently invited me to a couple of his streams on his channel. He's very supportive. He helps young channel to develop. Brian from Embryonic Robot, a fellow Canadian who lives in Toronto. Really cool channel. And yeah, other such as, for instance, my French friends, the gang of the Vinyl Show, Vinyl Mood, Meteora, and Vinyl Stardust. They invited me to one of their show. It was pretty cool. Monsieur Vinyl as well. He devoted me an interview 6 months ago. He wanted to know about my experience over here, and I could share with all my French fellows. And yeah, a lot of other people. For instance, Luca from Planet of Plate, for instance, a great guy. We have lot of common ground. And I often participate in one of his live stream on Friday. The German vinyl community really rocks. Joseph Isola, a French YouTuber, French video maker, very into jazz, into Coltrane stuff. So yeah, really really cool. And yeah, I'm gonna. The thing I'd like to mention, so I will just say hello to everyone who's just tuning in. So hello, Spectrum Archives, uh, Direct Direct Drive Records, another guy from Germany. Steve is here. Meteora, Nadine, Mr. Phonograph, very good channel. Mr. Phonograph, he is the one who dedicated his channel to very old music from the 30s, from the 40s. Shellac. He's been recording stuff from the old 78 and uploading on his channel. So very interesting. Not a lot of people mention or highlighting this era of music among the vinyl community. Pete is here, Basement 45. Hallo, hallo Pete. Alles klar? Alles klärchen. Lality is here. Hi. And yeah. And Joe Metal. Salut Joe. Salut. Another guy who comes from Alsace, from the place where I come from. I will mention very interesting. I was telling about connection that we made, and something very interesting happens about a couple of weeks ago. A guy who subs to my channel, a French guy, he sent me an email. He found my email address, and he has some artistic skills. So he I'm going to share it with you. Just trying to find. Okay. So yeah, first of all, he composed a lot of music different. It's homage to Zappa, to Pink Floyd. It's ambient prog rock, and he's a very talented guy. Doesn't have a lot of support, I think. So I'm gonna support him. I will share a link in the chat, so you can listen to his music. It's really interesting. Composed a lot of different things, as I said, very prog orientated, or influenced by prog, by progressive music, ambient record. And he also an artist, so very interesting. He draws, and he has a certain talent. This is what he shared with me. So he had like paints like cover of record, and I think he has a certain talent. So in my book, so I just wanted to share it with you guys. So what this guy made. So I think you can even buy, or yeah, you can even purchase this art. So I think he has a talent. So yeah, he contacted me. He wasn't asking for anything, but I think it's the right place to talk about our. It's a big community at the end of the day. So we are here to support each other, and I'm really glad. So some people found my channel interesting, and we can share some our passion. So this is I will just put a link. So here we go. So if you want to give a try to his to what he composed, yeah, Mr. Phonograph is pretty cool, and he's located in the southern part of France, in Montpellier, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so if you are in France or if you're in Europe, maybe you have a chance to have a great deal to when you want to buy or when you want to try this is music. Looks like you broke into Ben Ranking's closet. Yeah, it's true, Steve. It's true. I think I had a problem with my connection, so I have to move to another room. I didn't have a chance to do my live stream just behind my Kallax. So yeah. So yeah, I invited three other people. So yeah, at the beginning, I was intending to start with my friend Eric, but I see the first one has already arrived, so I will invite her to join me.
Hi.
Hello, hi,
Hi from Germany.
hello Nadine. I'm very glad that you could make it. Very cool, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation to your first ever live stream. What a milestone. Congratulations also to your almost 500 subscribers.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool. It's not about the number; it's really about the quality of the exchange
Yeah,
that we have. Yeah. So yeah,
and
I wanted to invite you because it's very interesting. You are in Germany. You start your channel talking about great soul and rare disco music in English, and now you had a transition. I think a couple of weeks or a month earlier to start video in German,
mhm.
and I find it's very interesting because we I have a lot of French people watching my channel. My videos are only in English, and I just wanted to know how it feels, why you decided to. We can talk a little bit later, and what you shows and what your genre, your rabbit hole you're into, and you have a great taste for music in general. So I'm really glad that you could come to my show. We can discuss about
Thank
that.
you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you very much.
Can you just maybe introduce your channel to people who are living under a rock who doesn't know who you are?
Of course, I will. So my channel is called Soul Disco, and I started the channel I think about 2.5 years ago. And the reason I started the channel is because I wanted to connect with people. In Germany, it's not soul and disco land. It's more rock or jazz, but not soul and disco. And the thing is, I actually started my channel in German, but it got like zero interest. And so I switched to English. And like a few months ago, I was asked more and more times to do some German videos. And so I try to have a mixture between German and English videos. So at least once a week, I have a video in English where I talk about a specific artist and the album and the background story. And I try to find the balance between that. So it's not easy because the English people are complaining that I'm not doing enough English videos, and the German people are complaining because I'm not doing enough German videos. But for me, it's very important to showcase not rare, but soul and disco music, and talk about the artists, and also that it's still possible to find cheap records with great music on it. Because nowadays I have the impression, like the John Coltrane record, which has been sold for $12,600, so that it's really getting expensive. But for me, it's very important to showcase that there are still records out there which are affordable with great music.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And my next guest, I will just invite him to join. He does the same job. He's more into jazz, and I will invite him. This is a good friend of mine. This is Vinyl Chef Steve. Hi, Mr. Steve.
I'm
Hi,
doing
Steve.
Yeah,
Hi,
you
Nadine.
are
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
you
meet you too.
you
Nice
are in.
Phil Evans picture in the background.
I nabbed that from Amoeba in Los Angeles before they closed down their location
Wow.
and moved to their new location. I was there looking for, and I saw that on the wall, and I had to have it, so I snaked it from there.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
you are more into jazz, and you did a very interesting video, the 10 records we should start with as a beginner. And it was very interesting because you were naming people like Art Blakey, Kenny Burrell, Milt Jackson, not the usual suspect, not the Coltrane, the Sonny
Right.
Rollins, the Miles Davis. And it was very interesting to point out that, hey, those are the records you should start with, and they are affordable. So,
Yeah, and it was difficult to even choose those 10 because there's a plethora of artists that can fall into that category of, affordable, very approachable jazz for the beginner who's wanting to get into jazz, and
yeah.
there's reason for that too. But I just chose those 10 because I didn't want to I could have spent, weeks deciphering and qualifying, and those ones kind of struck a chord with me.
Yeah. My fourth guest is my good friend, Stunty, a
Hello.
fellow countryman.
Hello,
Hi,
It's
Steve.
Stunty.
Stunty.
Hello, Nadine.
Hi,
Hello,
Stunty.
Ronald.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Pretty, pretty cool. Yeah. Hi, Stevie. See a lot of people coming in the chat. So yeah, I
First
was
time
what
I'm the only one with glasses on the on the live stream. I feel older suddenly.
Oh, come on, man. I'll trade you that hair for those glasses, bro.
Yeah. No.
I was about to say that you're not the only one with long hair. So yeah, but yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You have a lot of different approach when you talk about your dedicated favorite genre. I'm not talking about favorite genre for Stunty because Stunty is very knowledgeable. He's
Mhm.
into music concrète, avant-garde, but not only that, he's very
Yeah.
knowledgeable about all the genre. Nadine is
Right.
more into soul disco. As I said, you're into jazz. I'm talking about prog and folk, but we all were growing up, listened to a lot of different music, and our path is made of great discoveries. So I thought it was
Right.
interesting to find some common ground, because
Oh
we,
yeah,
we yeah,
it's a
yeah.
it's a very nice blend of genres. As far as, I mean, Stunty is a whole other level. As far as, I consider him a musicologist because he hits every aspect of the music. I mean, and just goes really deep into artists that are not, mainstream, which I think is great because we're all forced to hear and listen to the same stuff over and over. And I find myself struggling to even want to do a video because I'm going to show records that somebody else has shown, 150 other channels did a video on it yesterday. So yeah, it's neat to have someone like Stunty out there who's digging up music that we've never heard. And yeah, I really appreciate that. And then Nadine, the soul and disco, a lot of people don't know because I haven't really shared enough about what I do. The music that I am into, jazz is probably the genre that I listen to the most, but I do listen to a lot of soul, a lot of early soul, northern soul, funk, R&B. All of that is very, very high on my list of music. And Nadine, your collection is amazing. I just found out about you through French Vinyl Addict, and I went through your channel and I was looking at a lot of the records that you have, and yeah, that's fun. I'm going to be perusing through there quite a bit. So yeah, I really appreciate that. But just real quick, I'm going to give you a little bit of news about where I'm heading with the whole channel thing. As you know,
Sure.
how do you pronounce your name correctly? Is it Romuald?
Oh, in French, I would say Romuald, but you can say Rami or FVA, whatever. It's up to you. No
Romuald.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I know that you know this, and Stunty probably knows this too. But my channel I originally started my channel based on food, and I've always been a collector. Been a collector for 20 years. I did own a record store for 4 years, back in the mid, like 2010, 2013, 2014. And so I've always been a collector, but I've always been really passionate about food. So sometimes being creative is more of a curse than a blessing, because I'm up to like 2,700 subscribers, but I only started posting videos about records maybe last year. And so I'm seeing this conflict between, the vinyl community probably doesn't want to have to see the food videos and all of that. And I get it. I understand that. And then the same goes for the food enthusiasts. They come to my channel looking for food recipes. They might see something that gets caught in the algorithm, and they come to my channel, and maybe they don't subscribe because they're like, oh, what's this vinyl stuff after the food, recipes? They don't want to have to sort through all of that. So I understand it. So in trying to serve the community better, both food and vinyl records, I'm going to branch off and start a new vinyl record channel that's just going to be dedicated 100% to vinyl records. So
Okay.
that's coming in the next week. I'll be starting that, and it's going to be called The Record Mission, because that was the name of my record store when I opened my record store in Ontario, California. So that's what I'll be called. On there, I'll just be Steve, not Vinyl Chef Steve. I'll just be Steve. So, do I have your approval, Stunty, to do that, so you don't have to see another
I
salad
think
video?
no, I'm really into food, but
You are talking
uh,
to two French people, so
yeah.
don't ask that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would, as much as I think that one's story is like the rebranding and all that, I'm usually not too much for that. But I'll be
Yeah.
honest, and in this case, I think it makes sense.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
All right.
And
You're
just a quick thing, as you were asking Romuald about his name.
Yes.
Romuald is a very French name. You guys might not know, but it's a very bougie name.
He's the least bit bougie, that's for sure. He's so
Yeah,
down to earth.
Oh,
That's
then
why.
he's royal, and that's
Yeah.
why he moved to Canada, huh?
yeah, No, my father, he named me. I was born in '86. Tomorrow is my birthday, by the way, but doesn't matter. And he named me after an obscure singer. I think he made the Eurovision
Oh,
for
happy
Belgium
birthday.
or Luxembourg. He was named Romuald, and my father really liked his name, and he wanted to have something different than the usual Marc, Jean, or Mathieu, or whatever. But it's really hard outside the French-speaking part of the world. I have to spell, I have to write, and it's complicated. So, Rummy or FVA, it's yeah.
Yeah. So you guys would obviously know about Beaujolais, right?
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
sure.
course, Beaujolais
Yeah,
wine.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you know this, but my profession, my full-time job is
Sommelier,
a
sommelier.
wine sommelier. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the store that I work at, one of the best lines, a Frenchman came in, and he was talking to me about wine, and somehow we got on the subject of Beaujolais, and he was being funny, and he says, it's not the Beaujolais, it's not the Beaujolais, it's the Beaujolais. And I wasn't quite sure if he was hitting on me or what, but man, that's one of the best wine lines I've ever heard in my life. You know?
Do you like wine, Nadine?
Of course, I like wine. I'm from Germany, but I prefer
Yeah.
gin tonic or cocktails. But I
Mm.
do love a nice white wine with the right temperature.
Hmm.
Sauvignon Blanc,
Yeah,
for example.
temperature is very important when it comes to white wine because
Yeah,
a lot of times if you over chill it, you lose so much of
flavor. Mm.
the nose and the flavor just disappears. It gets masked in the cold.
So yeah, let's talk about music.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I recently watched your video, Nadine. You were talking about Samuel Jonathan Johnson, very
Yeah.
very underrated artist, and I listened to that disco music, and I was shocked. Probably because back in the days when I was 14 years old, I was starting to listen to disco music, but I went directly to the usual suspect. Disco as a huge success in Germany back in the days. Even a TV show named, I think, Disco.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
correct. With Ilya Richter, he was the host of the show, a German legend.
wasn't Dieter Thomas Heck?
No, he made Hit Parade
Ah,
in the second German television, and disco was from another
yeah,
channel.
in ZDF, yeah, in the 80s, yeah, with all
Yeah,
the
exactly.
yeah. So, and I never came to this artist, to this 1974, 1975 artists of soul disco records. Can you explain why the mainstream things took over? Do you have some explanation?
Well, the mainstream is what people dance to in the clubs, and you have to consider if other artists who may had a single which didn't do very well, but the record label said, okay, let's try an album, and that also did well. They were not getting the same promotion as like Barry White or Gloria Gaynor. So that was a problem, and also many things, although super rare stuff was done on private pressings or tech scam labels, and so that never really saw the light of the day. So
Okay.
promoting and all of this, bringing the people out there, making them know, and also having the DJs in the clubs play the music and the DJs on the radio play the music. There was some money exchange, and if you had an artist that didn't do well, you wouldn't spend money on it.
Okay, so in a way, it was like in the '60s garage rock when you had all this university label owned, and they were releasing one single and then disappeared. Okay,
Yeah, you have
so
that also quite often, and some of these singles are super rare. And I have seen when I was in the UK in Blackpool, there was a Northern Soul Festival, and they had a huge wall of 45s, and the cheapest one was 1 grand.
wow,
Yeah.
It was the cheapest one, so
wow,
they're really skyrocketing in price.
yeah. To me, when more into prog rock or folk or late '60s stuff, my favorite go-to country is the UK. I went to the
Mm.
UK 3 times in the last 2 years, and I could find some really great stuff. How about you? What is your country if you want to find really cool holy grail rare stuff for cheap, or only you have to? Where do you go? Where do you travel to?
I travel to the US a lot. to find records, but also finding records in a good condition, original pressings in a good condition, is super difficult. Also finding good James Brown records in good condition, or early Aretha Franklin in good condition, that's very pricey and very difficult. I would love to go to Brazil. I would love to go to Israel, to Italy, to find out about their 60s and 70s music. But it's also getting very difficult. And with Discogs, you can have a lucky punch. But if you are looking for a specific pressing, an original pressing or something like this, people have the possibility now, which is also a good thing, to check what do I have up here. And then you say, oh, wow, this is a $200 record. I'm not selling it for €2 or $2. So you can still have lucky punches, but it's getting more and more difficult.
Okay.
Hey,
And how
Nadine.
about
Just quickly about disco and Germany. I just saw the first episode of an upcoming German TV show called Disco 76 that is actually showing in Bochum. Like, it's a miniseries that's coming out in April. I have a friend who worked on it. He sent me a preview, like an advance file of that, and it's quite interesting to see how, like, disco in Germany, it's like in most of the world. It's not just in the US. It was the music of minorities, but like in Germany, which is a very Christian country, it's also the music that was opening up society, like, to be way more liberal, like more like free love and stuff like that. At least from what I know and what I see there again.
Yeah, but that also for me counts to the United States, because disco was originally, as far as I know, done for the LGBTQ plus community. So they had a space to have free love and could have party without being judged. So this is how the discos really started. So I think disco opened up doors for many people. So, but yeah, in Germany, we were. Yeah, that's also absolutely true. But I do think that counts for many countries.
It's just that in the US, and the first discos were French, by the way. It was like
Exactly.
discotheques.
And the French were the first ones to invade, to have two turntables.
Yeah.
This
And
was
it was
done in
like
France.
guys who did that in France and then who imported it in New York.
Yeah.
But I think really in the US, of course, there's the sexual liberation. But at first it was like, let's have a place for minorities where, like, you will be allowed inside, which was not the case before. Whereas in Europe, I guess it was really more about, like, okay, I have a wife, but, like, do I need to spend all my life with her? Oh, disco.
Oh, well, I think that happened before disco as well, that you might
Yeah.
have considered to have someone next to your wife.
But speaking of,
If you could
French
afford it.
and discos, I want to ask you, Stunty and Nadine, have you guys ever seen this or heard of this band, Supermax?
Yes.
Yeah, I was so lucky in 2019 to pick this up at the
Oh, sorry.
Hospice de Beaune Farmers Market. Have you ever been to the farmers market in Beaune before, Stunty?
The farmers market in Bonn?
Yeah.
No.
Oh man, if you ever get out there, you've got to go. It's the most amazing. This is a French pressing, and it was just beautiful. 1977, I think it is. Yeah, 1977. But this, to me, I just love this kind of music too. I have a good collection of that style of would you call that like disco too as well, Nadine? Yeah. That's like disco, right? French disco?
I would consider it, yes.
Yeah, it's an amazing. It's really an amazing album. I love it.
And there's some great bridging between a lot of, like, well, you have also music concrete elements sometimes in disco, but you also have, I think I talked with Romuald some time ago about this side project from Soft Machine called Plaza that is incredible good boogie disco from like 1980. Yeah, and well, and I mean, all these jazz men from the US who by the early mid 70s no one wanted them, so they had to either
Yeah.
go in rock or disco for
Right.
a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah.
How about Brian Bennett? Are you into Brian Bennett, Nadine?
I like Brian Bennett. Yes.
Yeah. The I think what the record Voyage.
Mm,
That's an amazing record too, which is kind of, I consider that kind of disco as well, but it's very
yes.
fantasy
It's
sounding.
very disco flavored.
Yeah, yeah. He's an amazing drummer. Yeah. Oh, real quick, Stunty, can you enlighten me to the concrete music? What is that? I've never heard of that.
So basically, it's the birth of electronic music.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the electronic music exists thanks to three inventions: the speakers, so amplification, the tape recorder, and the forest lamp. That last one is more technical and it's not really important. But basically, back in the late 40s, at the French National Radio, there was a club of people who were just sound enthusiasts, and they were recording sounds, collecting sounds, and they would gather every once in a month at the. They had like a room dedicated to them, allocated to them at the French National Radio, where they would like present their recordings to each other.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
by 1950, the idea of making music out of it started to come out. And it's always a bit problematic to call it music in a way, as music traditionally is something that comes out of instruments. And in musique concrète, the instrument is is the tape recorder that you can accelerate, slow down, play backwards, use effects, but the source is recorded. Like electronic music then in Cologne, in Germany in 51, is the same principle, except that the source is not a pre-recorded sound, it's a sound that is generated by an oscillator. And in
Right.
the end, aesthetically and philosophically, both have a lot to do with each other, except that like musique concrète is tape music.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. I'll
Stunty, can you send me the pre-version of that series?
I don't know if I have the right, but I'll ask my friend, because
That would be great.
yeah. And let me show you something fun. This, which I actually found in Sweden, and this is extremely rare. I don't know how you would translate solfège in English. I always struggle with that word, but it's basically, noting.
The theory, yeah.
Yeah, music theory of the sonic object. So this is a free LP box with a book where the main theorist behind musique concrète started. It's almost like a romantic literature project rather than musical, because he started to create families of sounds, which is completely subjective. Obviously, he decided them with the help of other colleagues. But this is kind of this is not really interesting to listen to, as you don't listen to this as music. It's more like something an artifact, it's basically the grammar, the conceptualization of the grammar of that kind of music, of electronic music, is this. And well, let me see if there's anything fun to see about it, but it's well, not really. But oh well, it's a historical artifact, and it's funny because there's a Swedish famous electronic music musician who's kind of like the Swedish Terry Riley, the Swedish Stockhausen and all that, and he's a little bit of a hippie at the same time. And I visited him in his house, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. And I saw the record there, and on his shelves, and he didn't care for that. He just got it back then when he was visiting the studio in Paris, and I bought it from him. So I got Ralph Lundsten's, who did disco as well, by the way. Ralph Lundsten's Cosmic Disco is amazing. But yeah, so I got his copy of the founding moment, in a way, of electronic music, which is kind of...
Where do you find those things? Did you find them in the wild, or did you find that online? Or you got
Oh no,
that
this
from,
one, as I was saying, I found it
from him
in
directly?
his home. In his
Wow.
home, it was on his shelves, and
Oh, amazing.
and he told me, okay, you can have it for like $80,
Wow.
which
That's
was a
amazing.
steal. Like,
Yeah.
you never find this completely. Sometimes you find the free LPs,
Yeah.
but you never find them with the box. Or sometimes you find the box with the book, but without the records.
Yeah.
It's not like stuff like that. This you can find in the wild quite easily, Nadine.
Yeah, I see.
Don Quixote.
But I get as much pleasure from both.
Yeah. When you Steve, when you have friends at home and you know they don't know about jazz, do you ask them what they listen to in order to better match?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I collect pretty much every genre, except for concrete, which I'm going to start trying to find some of that. So when Stunty makes his way to Pasadena, I can have something to play for him, you know. But most of the time, I have everything from jazz, of course, to soul, R&B, funk, disco, rock, classic rock, Latin music. I have a huge collection of really cool, I guess you'd call it exotica, you know, fun, inexpensive records that are just, you know, fun to put on. I've got some heavy metal, some punk. Gosh, what else? A little bit of hip hop, not too much, but I like to have something for everybody. So anybody can come over and tell me what kind of music they like, and I can go to my genre and pick something out for them that's going to be fun for them to listen to, you know.
I like to have music for everyone. Sorry?
Congratulations on that box.
Oh, thanks. I like to have a little bit of like a lot of for everyone except for metalheads. I'm pretty happy with that. Like profiling. Yeah. I'm joking.
It's funny because the guys that come over to my house that want to hear metal, they don't look like metalheads, you know. They're just like, they may have been at one time, but now they're, you know, older and professionals, and you know, you might get some guy that is now a doctor, and it surprises you because sometimes you think, oh, he's a doctor, he probably likes classical music, you know. I mean, we stereotype people all the time, but it cracks me up sometimes when I watch these videos and I see these guys that are into hardcore punk, and I'm like, I mean, he looks old enough to be a grandfather, and I'm like, bless his soul for continuing. You know, he liked it when he was young, and he still loves it in his older years, because sometimes I struggle with listening as I get older. I'm 56, approaching 60 years old. And when I put certain records on and I look at them, I'm like, and I hear the music again that I loved when I was a child, you know, a young teenager, and I'm listening to it. It's not doing the same thing for me as it did when I was younger. Yeah. So it just, your ears change, just like your palate changes, you know, everything changes with time.
It's a very good point. I often compare jazz music or prog music or other more complicated stuff to a glass of brandy and a cigar. It doesn't a thing that you enjoy when you're 17 years old, when you go to clubbing.
Right.
It takes some time just to get it
Yeah, when you're 17 and clubbing, it's usually a reefer and a beer, right?
Exactly. Yeah, cheap beer and cheap vodka, and yeah.
I'm sorry, Nadine.
Sorry, Steve.
Sorry.
Do you recommend Pablo releases, especially for jazz? Because up here in Germany, they're very cheap, and they're at fantastic sound quality, and fantastic artists. I love Ella with her 1970 releases. So when I have questions about jazz records, I always recommend go for the Pablo releases. They're not expensive, and you get great quality recordings.
All day long. Pablo, I mean, there's great releases on there. What's that?
Sorry, I was like, go on. I'm communicating with the comment on screen.
Yeah, I think Pablo as well as CTI.
Yeah, exactly.
CTI has some. I mean, Red Clay. Freddie Hubbard's stuff on there is amazing. Milt Jackson's Sunflower is dynamite, and those records aren't expensive. And I pulled out a couple of things like this record right here. This is an amazing Freddie Hubbard record on CTI that you can get, and it's just amazing. I mean, the personnel on this, he's got some guys that you don't hear of all the time. He's got George Cables on electric piano, Ron Carter, he's on about every jazz record in the world. Ron Carter on bass, but also Kent Brinkley, Ralph Penland on drums. I've never heard of Ralph Penland, and I've listened to a lot of jazz records. And then there's, maybe you know what this instrument is, Daka de Bello. It sounds like an Middle Eastern instrument or something, but that's Juno Lewis. And then on guitar, Aurel Ray. The only guy I knew on here was Junior Cook on tenor saxophone. And this album is amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. Not crazy expensive. So yeah, CTI is another really great label. So is Muse. You can find some good stuff on Muse as well.
The Muse is more like is as much a reissue label as
right.
You wanted to you wanted to react to this comment.
Yeah, it's just like this is the most famous Pierre-Henry record because it has this hit. Like if you guys have ever watched the TV show Futurama, like The Simpsons, the future, the opening credits music is that. It's kind of like it's a jerk. Jerk is a type of like pop tune from the 60s with electronics from Pierre-Henry. And in a way, I guess, it could be a good starting point for Musique Concrète, but in a way, it's not Musique Concrète. It is someone from Musique Concrète using Musique Concrète, but doing like really funky pop music for the late 60s. I would say that this record from Pierre-Henry, like real Musique Concrète, but this one has quite a few bits that are like really striking. I know Nadine bought a few Pierre-Henry records on the Philips perspective of the 21st century records, and she was not totally sold on them. And I understand because the records, his records on that label are quite esoteric. This is kind of in between. This is still esoteric, but also has hooks in a way, like really cool music moments. And you can still find it for like 30-40 bucks normally.
But it had beautiful cover, Stunty. Beautiful cover.
Yeah, but like I'm not surprised that the music, even if you would be curious about it, that you wouldn't get enough to, you wouldn't get like a grip on it. It makes sense to me. I would not have recommended.
I think Pierre-Henry, he made his collaboration with Spooky Tooth, that very famous album. I don't know if I'm sure you have that one.
Yeah, but just so we know what Nadine is talking about covers.
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at that thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you could start a
whole
fire.
Series.
Nice. Man, those are some of the most fun records that I've ever found in the wild, or things like that you just take a chance on. You have no clue what they are, and you just, if you're at a thrift shop or somewhere where it's 50 cents or $1, you're foolish if you pass it up.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
I think that everyone here is kind of somewhat experienced or very experienced in like going out to on the hunt. And
right, right,
nowadays, like the most exciting stuff is either you find a real like long winded grail or something you have no knowledge of prior. That's
right.
always the most exciting to me, at least.
Yeah, I agree. Nadine, are you familiar with George Semper?
George Semper. No, it
Mhm.
doesn't ring a bell at the moment.
Yeah, he's, I guess you would call him he's been referred to as one of the innovators of the Hammond B3. He came over here from Trinidad when he was 5 years old with his mom, and he just progressed into music, decided he was going to make music because his mother loved music so much. That was his whole motivation, was his mom. And he turned out to be very influential in the industry, but one of those guys that, you know, his son refers to him as the most famous, unfamous guy he knows, because he touched so many artists in so many different ways. Have you heard of Mary Love?
Mm-hmm.
So he recorded Mary Love and produced a couple of her 45s back in the, I guess in the late 60s when or early
Wow.
70s recording. But what he's most known for, and this is a funny thing about this, is he's not most known for this, but this actual record got more recognition than he ever got in his entire career. And this guy is, I mean, he's one of my idols. I'm going to be doing an interview with his son on my new channel, Joel Semper, and this is Cypress Hill, "Insane in the Brain." You remember that song?
Yeah.
Insane in the
So the
midbrain.
yeah, the opening drum break, you know, hip hop and rap is all about drum breaks, right? The opening drum break was a drum break from a song called "Get Out of My Life, Woman," from Lee Dorsey, which was like back in the late 60s, I think, or mid 60s. And then George Semper sampled that song on his first album in 1966 called "Making Waves." Um, and then, like, what, 30 some odd years later, Cypress Hill sampled George Semper's version, his instrumental version, on his album Making Waves. And George Semper got the credit for, you know, that sample. But he did, you know, it's a shame that that's what he's attached to as far as his most famous, you know, recognition is on that hip hop record. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. I mean, everybody loves it. But yeah, he did so many more amazing things, and I'm really excited to do. So here's something you'll probably know. If you this record, Nadine, you would know who George Semper is. This is the Perfect Circle. You ever seen that?
I don't think so. No.
This is George Semper's group that he put together in 1977, out in Oakland, California. This is one of the hardest hitting, I mean, amazing Bay Area records that you can find. And George Semper produced and was the founding member of that band. And then he kind of, that's like probably the most recognized record that he put out. Yeah, it's, if you ever get a chance to listen to it, I don't think that I'm not sure if they've reissued it yet. I think it's just on, you know, the originals, if you can find them. They're but you would probably totally dig that. It's very, I mean, it's funky. It's got disco elements. You know, it's just a really amazing record. So check it out.
I will. I will. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I was thinking about like a good introduction for Steve in electronic music concrete would be a Freddie Hubbard record from 1971 that on
Oh,
Atlantic that you can still find for nothing. It's his collaboration with Ilan Mimaroglu,
Uh-huh.
a Turkish composer who became the head of the music department in Berkeley, I think. I'm not sure which big university in the US, but it's a record called "Sing Me a Song Oh My, which has been sampled a few times as well. But
Sing me a song.
Sing Me a Song, Oh Song My. Wait, let me tell you exactly.
Okay.
But it's
I'm
like
typing it in my notes on my phone. That's why I'm looking down.
yeah, it's 71. Yeah, Sing Me a Song of Song My. Freddie Hubbard,
Okay.
Atlantic 71.
1971. Okay.
It's cheap heat, as we say.
Good. Love cheap heat. Thank you, Stunty.
Are you a bit?
Have you guys any type of music that you were at one point really into, that you invested yourself into, that you still have records, but that is kind of sitting there and not getting much love these days? For me, it was hip hop. I have a
Yeah.
lot of hip hop, and recently, I like for the past 2-3 years, I was thinking, do I really need to keep all these records? And recently, I'm finding a new appreciation for it again. But it was not a given it was going to be like that.
Yeah, hip hop as well. Yeah, I was very into hip hop back in the days, 2005, 2003. But still, at the time, I was listening to a 90s classic, Wu-Tang Clan or French bands like I Am. And after, I think, 2007, I gave up. Yeah, so.
Go ahead, Nadine, after you.
I loved hair metal. Guns N' Roses and groups like this. Alice Cooper, who did Poison at the time. I was totally into that. But I'm slowly but surely getting again into Guns N' Roses with Appetite for Destruction. I love that.
Romuald, can you zoom in on me?
Sure. I will make you big.
Nadine knows what that is in the corner.
Hold
you
on
see
a
that?
Sorry, I see the yes. This is you have a bad picture quality, but this is the cover of a very famous jazz record. This is a type of Viagra. No, I see the Guns N' Roses box.
Yeah,
that's the locked and loaded box set sitting on there.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I'm getting green of jealousy.
Getting back to your question, to Stunty's question, that would be what, like, I love that music. I just don't listen to it as much, but I'll never part with it because I love to put it on, and that music takes me back, And you're right. I don't listen to it. I don't choose to pull it out and play it. It's one of those things that I would probably play for someone that came over that was really into metal and heavy, hard rock, because I can still sing the lyrics to every one of those songs. That's how much I listened to it when I was a kid,
And you made a special video about that box set a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Nadine, I did do a video on that box set. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's what's so cool about that. Where I bought it from, whoever I bought that from, it's a promo. There was 10,000 boxes made, and my certificate has nothing but zeros on it. The serial number is all zeros.
Wow.
So yeah, I got pretty lucky on that. And then I also found out that, believe it or not, there's a hidden compartment behind one of the drawers inside that they don't even tell you. When the producer does the original unboxing of that, when they promoted it, when it was released, Jeff, I can't remember what his last name is, Jeff something. He doesn't even mention this compartment. He does everything else about the box set. And there's like 100 things in there. There's rings, there's patches, there's bandanas, there's photographs. There's a cassette in there in the back of there's a little compartment behind one of the drawers that doesn't come out when you pull that drawer out. And inside there is a sealed cassette of their first promo, their first demo tape.
Yeah, awesome.
It's
wow.
wild. It's really, really wild. But yeah, that's a fun box set.
I think we should all do a video about our guilty pleasure section next week.
Yeah. That was a good question, Stunty. That was a good question.
Yeah, because the funny thing is that I keep checking new hip hop all the time, trying to find hip hop that will challenge me. But the
Right.
hip hop from the past, for the longest time, it felt like museum pieces for me at
Mhm.
one point. And recently, some people asked me to show some hip hop and just like pulling them out and playing them. Like, oh, okay, the joy is back.
Yeah, I can still, believe it or not, I can still pop in my Tupac records, and enjoy them, and I can still pop in my De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising, and
Mm.
dig that, you know.
which has been
But
recently
anything else,
reissued.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I've learned a
Yeah,
lot from French Vinyl Addict about prog. He's helping me. I come to him for prog, education, and that's why we, first hit it off. And
yeah.
um, he mentioned support, and I think that's probably one of the key words in what we do here. It's support, and there's more competition sometimes than there is support, but you find the people who like to be supportive, and you make those connections, and that's how you build and grow relationships with people. Stunty and I, we met a while back, and we got into a pretty lengthy conversation. Do you remember, Stunty?
yeah, or it was like last year, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we agreed to disagree on some things. It was at a really difficult time for me, because you probably don't you wouldn't understand this, but I was feeling attacked for really doing nothing at all. And so I might have been a little bit defensive, but you're always eloquent in how you played up your concerns or your thoughts and everything. So I remember we were very amicable in our conversation. And it's nice to be able to get an opportunity to speak to you on different terms this time. And it allows me to see what a nice gentleman you are. And that's what it's all about, is getting to know each other.
Yeah, and you're a nice gentleman too, Steve. I think I had like 12 subs. I was commenting something, and you made that video about the 10 records you would recommend to a jazz
Mhm.
new beginner, and you were mentioning my channel. So I thought, wow,
Well, and
it's
and me
great.
and Stunty have a very mutual friend, and you know who that is, right, Stunty?
I'm not sure.
Marius.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's a mutual friend of both of ours. Very nice gentleman, and another person that if you don't get a chance get a chance to meet and to know, he can be taken out of context as well. And he's like he's the VC police, is what I call him. You know,
It's just like the VC is the same as the world. Like,
right?
either you're able to communicate and to have productive exchanges with people you strongly, strongly disagree with, or you're
Mm-hmm.
not. And if you can't, then you can't. That's
Yeah,
what it is. For me, I get a lot from being able to communicate with people I disagree with. The disagreement you and I had was not a disagreement, by the way. It
right.
was like, I don't even remember what it was. It was just like,
Yeah,
in terms of approach of collecting, if I remember correctly, but I only vaguely remember it,
yeah.
and I kind of didn't really understand what we disagreed on in the end. But
So I guess it wasn't that important then, right? It wasn't
yeah, yeah.
important enough to go separate ways or anything. So yeah, so much gets lost in translation and context, taken out of context.
But
In
one of the things that Romuald is doing here is like, um, these days there has been talk about a UK VC, which thankfully people
Mhm,
are like playing down now. Then there's Nadine is doing a German VC. There is
mhm,
a French VC and all that. But like now we have Romuald, who's in Canada, me in Sweden, Nadine in Germany, you
mhm,
in the US, and what's interesting to me is that for me, and tell us that, Romuald and Nadine, for me, when I decided to do VC videos 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, it never was a question for me. Oh, am I gonna be legitimate or anything to do that in English? Is it gonna be? How am I gonna be perceived? Is it gonna be easy to transition or whatever. Like, and for me, it was never a question. It was just like the internet is kind of international. It's kind of in the name in a
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and like apparently the German VC seems to be able to have a very strong and healthy community that I wouldn't say is isolated, since like Michael 45,
Michael, yeah.
Nadine, other. I saw that Peter was in the chat here. Uh, the French violin community is maybe less so far bridging itself with other communities, and there's no obligation for that. But like,
Due to the language barrier.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But really, I never felt like, oh, are people gonna make fun of me because I'm not English or American? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should have
No,
feared
no.
Yeah,
that. But
I had this concern at the very beginning. I thought, okay, I'm French from France. I have an accent. People in France will never watch my channel because French and English is like two different words. And the vinyl community has already been established. You have already guys that have been running their channels for years, and it's very hard to get into a community, to a family sometimes. So yeah, it was a concern. But after a couple of videos, I had a very friendly people. They came over and wasn't a concern anymore.
So it's kind of a this is kind of a UN VC, you could say, right?
for me, it is.
Yeah, I think it's great. I don't know, do it with politics. I don't know why we can't do it with vinyl records and music. You know,
How is it for you, Nadine, when you
Yeah.
started?
Actually the same way as you. I never had the thought, oh, is my English not good enough, or is the way I'm presenting it maybe wrong, or are people getting too critical? I never had these thoughts. I just did it because if you're overthinking stuff, you're never going to do it. So, and all my experience were great. You always have people who are maybe disagreeing with you or not happy with lighting or stuff like this, but I felt very welcomed in the vinyl community, in each country. So, but you're having a good point. I never had any connection with the French vinyl community, and the French people love soul and disco.
Yeah, but
But is it still the fact that French people don't like to speak English? Is that still? Because when
no.
I started working like 25 years ago, it was like, oh, English, we're not going to do that.
If you travel to Paris now, and even 20 years ago, 9 people out of 10 in the street randomly will be able
Mhm.
to speak English with you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was in France in 2019. I was in Champagne. I was in Beaune. I was in Bordeaux, and I was in Paris. And in every single area, I was treated with just the most utmost respect, kind people. Just about everybody spoke English, except for our driver that we hired an Uber to take us from Paris to Givry to go see Monet's house, and yeah, he didn't speak a lick of English, but he was driving a $250,000 Mercedes with a massager in the front seat, so I didn't give shit. I was happy. It was a super great experience. But I'll tell you that my wife and I had the most amazing experience. Everything that there's a stigma about that French people don't like Americans, and I would understand why, for many reasons. But when we went there, we were kind of fearing that, but we were treated wonderfully everywhere we went. I don't know if it had something to do with me being in the wine business, and a lot of the places that I went. I mean, I was,
That
I,
helps.
yeah, I was lucky to stay at, like, I don't know if you know, like Chateau du Tertre, du Cru,
Yeah.
Bucaillou, these chateaux that were, in Bordeaux and in Beaune. I stayed at Champagne Lanson. They hosted me in their house there, and everybody just treated us really, really nice. But outside of there, when we would go eat or we were in town, you were always able to find somebody that spoke English, and they were happy to speak English. So I didn't notice that.
Of course, not everyone speaks English, and not everyone is very fluent.
Yeah.
But like compared to like 30 years ago, it's a
Yeah.
huge difference. Like Fred here, Big Star Mille, was
Mhm.
saying that yeah, Stunty, you say Paris is good, but look at the rest of France. In a way, yeah. But like I remember the first time I went to Germany, I went to Munich
Mhm.
as a school exchange thing, and I was shocked at how bad they were in English, like even worse than French people back then.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a fluke. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends. It depends. Even in yeah, it depends. In if you work with the industry companies that export their products, and wine is a perfect example.
Mhm.
Even it's not industry. People speak English because they communicate, they export their products. They have
Right.
clients all over the world. You're in the wine business. It would be
Mhm.
much more different if you would be in, I don't know, if you would travel in a small village.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, one of the things I realized, and I developed a newfound respect for anybody who traveled to France prior to GPS navigation systems in cars. I mean, it's a night and day when you come from the transportation and the roads in America, and then you go to France. All the roundabouts and just how everything is situated. If you can't read French, how do you read the maps? You know, back in the DC in the movies when they're opening the big maps in the cars like this, or even the Thomas guides. We struggled a little bit with navigation. We didn't really get lost, but it was a challenge, you know.
Well,
Um,
it's also because I guess France is it's a medium it's a small country in the world. In Europe,
mhm,
it's a fairly big country in size, but
mhm,
it's still relatively small.
right.
But at the same time, it's the country in the world that has the most amount of cities.
Oh
So
yeah.
everywhere you go is different, has a different
Right.
name, has a different history.
Yeah.
So in the US, if you travel, like you could go like for miles and miles without crossing a new city. Like
Right.
in France, like it's every 5-10 minutes you will
Right.
be in a different. Yeah,
Yeah, cities. Yeah, we have 30, I think 37,000
we have
towns.
yeah
Yeah,
37,000 cities in France,
but
which is
cities,
like insane.
not big. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's just shy of how many grape varietals they have.
Have you ever been to France, Nadine? Do you like France?
Yeah, I love France. I love it. People are super friendly. Record shopping is great. The food is great. I love France. I'm actually in a couple of months. I'm driving. I'm going with the TGV and riding by train to France. But at Topo, I don't think that they are driving on the wrong side
No,
of
no. Ed,
I think in
because
the UK.
Ed is from the UK. Yeah.
Okay. I see. Now that makes sense. For us, it's right. I would never drive a car in the UK. When I'm in the UK, I'm always trying to find an Uber or taking the subway because that's for me weird.
Yeah, I already try. Yeah, I already drove in the UK like 4 times, and the first time almost killed my wife.
I don't know if it's a common trope for everyone, but I see a few people saying that, oh, record digging in Paris is amazing. I'm from Paris. I don't think Paris is amazing at all for record digging, especially if you're a tourist. I think if you live there and you know your spots and go there regularly, yeah, then it's quite good. But I don't know if everyone feels the same about where they are. That, oh, it's all right. It's not the best.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
also depends on what kind of music you're looking for, maybe.
exactly. Yeah, I was about to say
Well, I'm
that.
looking for any types of music,
Yeah.
so it's
But
just that
Stunt, you have already seen everything.
no, but like the thing, Paris. I think France compared to Sweden, where I am, and compared to Belgium, for example, which I think is a better country to go record digging. There's more people interested in records than there are records in France.
Hmm.
Mm,
Like,
that makes
I mean, if you go there every day, of course you will find incredible stuff. But you really like French record dealers are some of the most knowledgeable international dealers. Like when all the big name producers of hip hop from the US come to Europe, Paris is like, okay, now we're gonna get some secret weapons for the next 2-3 years. Like someone like Madlib, I've met him quite a few times at friends who are record dealers in Paris, and they were just like spending like $12,000 on a bunch
Wow.
of records like that.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
what
that's why.
record stores can you recommend in Belgium?
In
Sorry,
If I
Brussels,
would go to Belgium, what kind of record stores could you recommend me?
in Brussels, there are a
Brussels is
couple.
amazing.
uh,
Ghent is really good.
Charleroi,
Anvers, how do you say Anvers in
Antwerpen.
Antwerpen is pretty good as well. And it's just that there's a lot of music in from Belgium that we've
Hmm.
like when you start to dig a little bit. Like I mean, Played Again Sam in the 80s, 90s is a Belgium label like Disque du Crépuscule, Crammed Disc. Factory had the Manchester label, Joy Division, The Order. They had like a Belgium version of it, like Factory Benelux, and there's all kinds of like jazz, avant-garde, metal. So I'll tell you what. The first time there's a guy who transcribed the original score of Trouble Man by Marvin Gaye for the soundtrack he did for the movie, and the way it was recorded for the movie was they did it in 3 days, and there's lots of mistakes in the score and in the recording. A guy from Belgium decided, okay, I'm going to correct everything, uh, build an orchestra and have it performed by all the musicians that should be performing that. And I was in a theater in Ghent. I took the train from Paris to go and see that. That was amazing, and I saw the love for that locally. That was just something I think we would have been a bit more jaded in Paris.
That one, the Big Star 1000 just mentioned, is a great place. I remember I was there
Oh yeah.
maybe 4 years ago, and I found some really good stuff. Yeah.
Spectrum Archives. I can't write here in the comment section, but yes, do me a favor and please write me an email at nadine@soldisco.de and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Stunty, do you think that applies? That theory applies to more records than collectors in Brazil?
What do you mean?
How you said in some areas there's more record collectors than there are records, versus there's more records than there are record collectors.
I would suspect so, increasingly with time. I can't say I know for sure, but that would be my intuition. I remember the first time I spent some serious time digging in the US was about 2002, 2003. And no, 2004. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. I spent like 3 months digging. And in a way, I thought it was already over. Like every shop was already using Discogs. And of course, I found some great stuff, but like compared to record digging in Japan, in Belgium, in Sweden, in Germany, yeah, I feel. Let's see if he comes back. Yeah, I just feel that the UK and the US are probably the least exciting places to dig for records nowadays. In a quite a long time now. I mean, you
Yeah,
will.
I can
It's
share that.
always a pleasure, and you will find stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, I can share that experience. I was in Vegas like 2 years ago, and they had some nice record stores, but the problem was the pricing was skyrocketing and the quality was horrible.
yeah.
Totally scratched up records, like $80, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And the quality in balance with the price was not good. So
Yeah,
I
big
tend
cities.
not to.
I live very close to the border with the US, very close to Vermont, and those are small cities, small record store, family owned. It's way different than New York or Boston, I would say. So I can find some cool stuff, but yeah, big cities. I would avoid. I would never take a trip to New York just for the record shopping.
I mean, if you can and you can afford it, why not? But it's not going to be. Um,
It's like London. The first time I went to the UK, I was in London. I went to Portobello Street, Reckless Record, all that kind of stuff. The better deal I made was at the old Spitalfield Market. And then I went the second time in the countryside, Brighton, Canterbury, and the other side, Cornwalls. And then I found some amazing places hidden
did
in
you
the
say the
countryside.
Spitfall Market?
Old Spitalfield Market, that's in
Yeah, yeah,
London.
that's the only place worth going in London. I totally agree.
Yeah.
But like for us, coming from Europe and having been like part of the US international vinyl community, I must say I'm quite constantly shocked at the tolerance I see in my fellow American VC collectors with VG records. I'm I'm kind of almost admiring it because to see how common it seems to be that people they're okay with the record having some clicking and stuff like that, when for us here in Europe, like no, 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 no. What do you think, Nadine?
I'm totally with you. We're on the same page on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hi,
Absolutely.
hi, Mr. Yen. Glad to have you on my show for once.
Yeah, well, you come on mine, so it's only fair I come on your own. Hello, Stunty again. I've been following him all weekend.
Was a streaming weekend for you, Stunty? Where were you? On every show?
No, only on 2.
Yeah.
All right.
But I was literally watching. I was in Canada right before the stream, as I was watching the biathlon, the last competition of the season in biathlon in Canada this year. Like it's not all the time, and France did pretty good. So France and Italy.
I want to just talk about what Stunty was saying about record shops in England. He's absolutely right. Now, when I lived in Northampton, around from about 85 to 90, we had about 7 specialist record shops that and we had the big like HMV. We've always had a big like HMV, but now we've got 2 specialists and HMV, and that is it. And HMV is very overly priced. They seem just go mainstream, and their vinyl is very small. But the one I go to has always been a record shop. It's changed hands, but it's just vinyl galore. And many years ago, the old shop used to have round the corner, like in a little room on its own, the second-hand stuff, and it's still in the same place. It's a great little shop. It's a genuine record, man. You go into HMV and ask for something really bizarre, they look at you, gone out. I do it on purpose.
But Iain, do you know Yo-Yo Records in London?
Yeah, I've been in Yo-Yo Records.
What's your opinion about the store?
It has got some good stuff in it, but I think the people that work in there are not as passionate about. Some of them are not as passionate about music and vinyl as what we had. They just see it as a job. They don't see it as a passion, because back in the day, everyone you spoke to in the record shops had passion, and they were getting excited. They got excited as what we did. You know, when you're ordering something, oh, you want that? Brilliant, and all that sort of thing. But the best shop in London used to be Tower Records at Piccadilly. I remember going in there as a 14-year-old. It was like being in a sweet shop.
I can tell you, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was going to London, you'd have to go to all the record tapes exchange, like the one in Notting Hill. Notting Hill was like insane, like because they had like for every style of music a different shop, and the one for like dance music was like a maze. But it all dried up, I guess, around 2005 or so. Like it became way too competitive. Like no one would basically pay the rent to have a second-hand record store in London made no sense economically, I guess, unless you were in it for yourself. But like having employees and all that, like it's just not feasible. But yeah, some people were mentioning Flashback. Flashback is great, but it's a second-hand record store. They're like, if you go there, you will find records where you will find some stuff for sure. But the wow factor from like the 80s, 90s, I think is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I did pick up. I went to I like going around antique shops as well, and I went in there and they had a very small record section. So I went in there, and I had all status quo on cassette when I was growing up. You know, all the classic quo. I picked up half of the catalogue that I wanted on vinyl for 20 quid. And that was about 6 albums. They were cheap as chips. Took them, brought them home, cleaned them all up, and they've got nostalgic crackle on it, but nothing that spoils it. It's just like heaven. It was like heaven listening to these records. So yeah, there are. I mean, there's one place that you go in, you have a cup of tea, you pop in, you end up there for 3 hours because the guy you just sit there talking about bits and bobs. He's a bit of this guy likes his metal, and he likes 60s, and he wrote a book about music in Northampton, and he knows about my dad who was in a band in the 50s. So I mean, we got talking about that. It's amazing.
If we see that like the source is drying up on Discogs, why would it be any different in real life? Because cheap records is one thing, but like when I go to London now, I'll find a few records, but like anything that is like a really desirable record, if for some reason, by any luck, a shop would have one of these like 200 quid record, it will be 400, and it won't be in the best shape. And it will probably be gone anyways because there are so many people who have a lot of money in London anyways. So you end up, it's not like when you go to Tokyo where like there will be always expensive records rightly priced that you will make yourself happy.
Yeah, I went to a record fair a couple of weeks ago, not the one in Leeds, but another one, and they had a copy of Adam Ant, Dirt Wears White Socks. He wanted 50 quid for it, right? Now, I've seen that on Discogs for around about 20, 25. And he said, oh, that's a bit steep. He said, it is rare. He says, yes, but the cover is looks like it's been chewed by the dog. It's in mint condition, he said. I said to him, it doesn't matter if it's in mint condition, fella. You can't sell an album for 50 quid when it looks like the dog's had his dinner on it. It was all creased, and I had a look at it, and he was right. It was absolutely spotless. But I wasn't going to pay 50 quid for a chewed up cover. I said, I'd have to go and buy another one just to get a decent cover. So I says, nah, I says, you'll never sell that for 50 quid. I said, I'll give you 15 for cash here and now. And he wouldn't take it. And some bloke said, to be honest, he said he's a fool. So that's all I'd pay for that, 15 quid. I mean, when I was up in Leeds, I got an album by a band called the Sputniks. They're like a Swedish version of you must have heard of Stunty. You're just walking in.
Yeah, I know about them.
Yeah, they're in London. You know, Sputniks in London. My dad had that, and I played it to death when I was a kid. And I found it. It was 20 quid, and I looked on the back, and someone had got a pen and inked all over it. I just said to the guy, I says, I love this album. I told him this history. I said, but can you do a deal on it because of the thing? And he said, I'll do it for 15. I says, done. You see, that's a proper deal. This guy, I think he was just some of the dealers they're a bit deluded they're trying to just because it's a rare record, but you can't sell if it's not the covers a mess or the cut. See that always the other way around where you've got the cover is immaculate and you've got an album that looks like someone's frying bacon on it, as I call It sounds like someone's fried bacon on it. You can't win with some people. Hello, Mike.
Does anybody know what happened to Steve?
No,
No, he just disappeared, didn't he?
disappeared.
Well, I can't stay long because I'm doing it. I'm booked for another live stream today. I'm very busy.
With Simon.
Wow, everybody is having. I think would be a great idea to have a kind of live stream program in advance, like 1 week in advance, who is streaming at what time. Wouldn't that be great?
Like the TV program, right?
Yes, I would love that. I'm missing so many live streams. Thankfully, Stunty is always having a kind of reminder in another group, so I see that. But otherwise, like, have you seen that live stream? So no, when? Like,
Yeah, especially Friday evening. Friday, the German, they have their live streams, Stunty. Sunday evening, it's horrible. Sunday evening, sometimes.
I'm all right. No one just went on a Thursday night, did
Oh,
they?
he's back.
Hey guys,
hey, Steve,
am I back?
Yeah.
you're back.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I don't know. Our broadband internet went down, so I had to drop my computer and come on my phone and just use my 5G network. You know, my cell phone. Sorry about that.
Well, yeah, that you're saying about that, Steve. On Thursday after my live stream, we always have a good old chinwag backstage, and my internet just dropped out. The lights went off and everything. And I was like, oh my god! So I went back in, and they were still sitting. I think I can't remember who was in there, but they was just sitting there, chopping away. Oh, you're back!
Yeah, I was scrambling like mad. You should have seen me. My wife thought, something bad had happened. I was frantic because our internet isn't the greatest. We don't get the greatest. So like the both of us can't, when we're on our phones, it fights. If we're both on our phones and on the television, it fights for the whatever you want to call it. There's not enough bandwidth, I guess you could say.
If you want the best internet, come to Sweden, Norway, and Finland.
I bet, man.
Yeah, we will do that.
I'm so jealous.
Stunty.
They have Wi-Fi in the deepest woods.
Wow.
In Germany, if you walk through a large city, you're like, am I connected? People like walking around with their phones, like, do I have connection now? And they have that in the deepest forest.
Wow. Oh man.
Yeah.
Last week when I was in Leeds, I tried to do a little live clip, and the connection in the pub was lousy, even on the Wi-Fi. It was terrible.
Wow.
I'm on that glass fiber, which is, and I noticed when my upload speeds to YouTube went through the roof. What was taking an hour was taking 10 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, I look forward to those days. We live in the community. We live in Pasadena. There's little communities that they have, like historical communities where the homes were built in like the 1900s, and they don't disrupt anything. They don't, like, they're the last areas in the city to get any modern technology attention. Like they don't want to dig up the streets, and I mean, they'll wait for a 100-year-old oak tree to fall over and kill your family before they'll let you trim the tree because it's, getting too close to your house. So that's California, though.
I think it just helps as well that across the road from me, literally across the road from me, is a junction thing. It's one of the British Telecom who sort of do all the wires and that. They've got a building across the road, so. And there's a huge box outside it. So,
speaking of the British community, welcome to another UK VC member.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike.
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Mike, the sweetest VC person of the whole VC besides myself.
Sorry? Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
No, I was just giving you compliment and then shooting myself in the foot.
Oh, right.
I suppose I better say hello to him. Hello.
Yeah, hello. What are you doing here?
Well, I've just popped in here before I go off and to do Jimmy's.
Yeah, I knew you were doing Jimmy tonight. Yeah, you're doing 80s singles, is that? Is that 80s singles you're doing?
Yeah, the 80s singles, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
who here? For me, the biggest game changer in my record collecting was 1998 when eBay appeared. Like that was, I was a student, and every week I was going to the city to the currency exchange to get some cash to send in an envelope to some random people in the US, in the UK, wherever, and that was like it feels almost like a lifetimes ago now when you think about everything we have. Like we were talking about the internet and all that, like, but back then I was going to university to have access to the internet, then to be there when the auction was ending, and then having, how do I pay that person, and to think that that was probably the norm, and which means that it was like internet general on a global level induced like illegality, like people sending cash to each other all over the world because there was no other way. Unless
we had to rely on sounds, didn't we, Mike?
Yes, sounds an NME.
Yeah, and you never brought it. You just go through it. You'd go in on the day it come out and just flick through.
Yeah, but that was the stage before when I was also doing that, like buying these magazines, not for the reviews, not for the interviews, but only for the advertising. This shop saying we're going to have these records in next week, because that was the only source of information.
That's right. That's right. And you know, there are one or two sort of decent DJs on Radio 1, weren't there, Iain? You know, that would tell you in the right direction. I mean, John Peel in particular. But
John Peel, Tommy Vance, they all used to.
Yeah.
You know.
I can remember with the music press, you know, both Sounds and NME, and you know, rather than being magazines, they were like newspapers, like a weekly newspaper.
A broadsheet.
They would have...
Sounds was a broadsheet.
That's right. Sounds,
you'd be going like this in the shop.
Yeah, and you'd get sort of the classified ads in the back where all sorts of people were selling bootlegs
or bands advertising.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, advertising for a guitarist or something.
Yeah, and not amateur bands. We're talking big bands.
Yeah.
Because Marillion advertised in the, I think in the NME for a brand new singer when Fish left.
Oh right.
Sounds so silly now with distance. Like it sounds really like amateurish on every possible level. I remember I had a friend who discovered a small time record dealer, and he found by chance the mother load of digging places. Like basically it was an untapped returns from Vogue Disc and a bunch of other French distributors, 3 million records untapped, all sealed. And suddenly his big issue was like, I need to have one of these. It was like 2006. It's only like 18 years ago. It's only 2006, but suddenly he needed that to have access to Gem. No, to Pop Psych.
Pop Psych.
Yeah. So that he would, this record, this, I should take it. This one, I should take it. And it was just like doing his head, and also needing to have internet access, like in this remote, like warehouse.
I don't know about Mike, but the other way we got to learn about new music is going to gigs.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that's how I discovered Bon Jovi. I went to see Kiss, and it was Bon Jovi's first visit to the UK. Went and brought the album. Another band I've discovered like that was Thunder. I only discovered them because I saw them as a support band.
Yeah. Bon Jovi's making Côte de Provence Rosé in France. He's got a winery. Called Diving into Water.
Well, Steve, it's probably better making wine than singing these days.
So is Brad Pitt.
I won't argue with that.
Yeah, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, they did the same.
Yeah,
They bought
Angelina
the,
with Miraval.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
where Pink Floyd used to record albums back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, she sold her interest a couple of years ago, and Family Perrin, the owners of Chateau Beaucastel, bought. I think they were the ones that actually were responsible for helping them build that brand and get their wine to the market. But I think Brad Pitt is maybe the sole owner now after Angelina dropped out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, celebrity booze is hilarious. You guys, I see Stunty over there shaking his head, but you got everybody.
No, it's
Metallica's
a big
got their
star
own
meal.
whiskey distillery. Post Malone's got a rosé. You know,
Bruce Dickinson made his beer, and Rush as well in Canada.
Yeah, Status Quo, Dog of Two Head is a beer.
Iron Maiden.
But the best one is the Trooper by Iron Maiden. That's a great beer.
That's right. Yeah. It's really nice, isn't it? It's
a damn good.
Yeah,
beer.
It's not just you don't just buy it for the name on the can, do you?
Right.
Actually, maybe our British friends will be aware of that, but wine is the true. It's the start of the modern civilization as we know it in the Western world, in the sense that if you're familiar with the 100-year war that basically shaped the Western world, in 1100, the British or the English kingdom had invaded Bordeaux, Gironde, and owned it, not totally official, not forever, but what happened is the King of England was French, essentially, but for the first time in 400 years, the French king dynasty had no heir, and the English king, he did a power move and said, I'm going to be king of France. But his goal was not to become the goal of France. It was just a power move so that he could negotiate that Bordeaux and Gironde would be forever English. Because at the time there was a huge cold wave in the world, in Europe, and water became undrinkable, essentially in the UK, which is why you need
drink, right?
Exactly, you needed to have wine to be on the safe side, and that's kind of when the French identity started to emerge for real as a country, people feeling French because of the British invasion that was meant to secure the wine. But
originally, correct me if I'm wrong, something, but weren't sommeliers originally created to taste the wine prior to the king tasting it? So if it was poisoned or bad, they would die before the king.
It is a side product of that for sure. Yeah.
It's not a great job to have, is it?
I wish someone could do that with. Imagine if we had that with the music, huh?
I was just about to think about that. Yeah. Imagine we give all the records to Mazzy. Say, Mazzy, listen to these records.
Everyone will be poisoned.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, guys. I unfortunately have to go. My mother just wrote me that one of my dogs feels sick, and we may have drive to the doctor. I'm so sorry.
Nadine, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Bye, Nadine.
It was a great honor to be on this panel. Thank you very much for inviting me for your first ever live stream. I hope you enjoy it a lot, and I'm wishing you guys a great time. And thanks for having me.
Right. Hope to see you again. Bye bye.
Take care, Nadine. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Yeah, but I remember when I was in the south of France. There was a red wine. I got to know the guy. He says you can drink it cold and at room temperature, and it tastes different. And I went, "I'll get away."
You should never drink a red wine cold. It's always a room temperature.
I said I've never had a cold one.
There's a new movement now, Stunty, and they're called chillable reds. We literally have red wines, Sangioveses, you name it, Cinsault. They're called somewhat skin contact, but blends. They're called chillable reds, and they're actually meant to be consumed cold. It's part of the natural wine movement. It's not traditional by any means, because Yeah, we both know you
Oh,
wouldn't put a bottle of Chateau Lafite in the refrigerator, to bring it to 32 degrees or 40 degrees. But yeah, really good red wine should be consumed right around 55, degrees.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what sort of red wines then are served chilled? Are they pretty light? Because I couldn't imagine a sort of like a really heavy wine sort of
Yeah,
chilled.
they're very light in color. They almost the skin contact is it's not the same length of maceration that you get when you make a Cab or a Merlot or a Cab Franc, any of those red skin grapes that are really heavy tannins. They shorten the length of time on the skins, and it produces kind of a lighter, more I would say acidic and lower alcohol type wines. But it's out here, there's this movement called natural wine, and it's a very different style of winemaking. But it's caught on with the younger generation, very, very, very popular with them. And also something called orange wine. I'm sure, have you guys heard of the orange wine thing? Similar thing. Those are red wines that have white. Most grapes are white juice, and and the skins, the color comes from the skins. So they take red wine and they just do maybe 2 weeks maceration, really light, and they don't punch down the grapes, and they get these colored wines that are like orangish in color, and they're pretty different. It's not for everybody.
Let's see if we can actually manage to turn the VC into like the VC wine community, like trading and all that. Like, do you know some collectors of wine, Steve?
Yeah, some of my customers. Yeah, I definitely know some of them. They come
Can you
in.
make it big, Romuald? I'm gonna show something that maybe I'm actually trying. I'm selling this.
Oh gosh, Patrice.
Oh wow!
That 78.
78.
Yeah.
Wow. Where do you have that stored?
Like, I have a wine cabinet.
Oh, good. Yeah, hopefully it's the temperature and everything is just right, because that's a special bottle of wine, Stunty.
Yeah, I can't afford to keep it. I'm trying to figure out how to. I had two, and that I got from my dad. I drank one, and now this one has to be. Is gonna pay for some records, hopefully.
How did it hold up? Because wine changes tremendously over the course of time.
So in January last year, we drank the other bottle of exactly the same. And it was. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Oh man.
Okay, well, it was different for sure. Oh, we're going to show wines, are we? Oh, very nice.
Oh, Pessac, yeah. 1986.
Yeah.
Look at you guys. I don't even have those things in my collection.
Well, I haven't got wine, but I've got a very old bottle of whiskey.
I wasn't expecting to show bottle of wines on today's stream, to be honest.
Yes. I've got a very old bottle of whiskey.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll make you big. Hold on a second.
Make you big. Yeah. What have you got?
That is from a distillery called John Begg in Glasgow. Now, you can't see, but it's got a royal seal on it, and it's approved by the late George V.
Wow.
So this is probably about 1934, 1935.
Wow.
Well, that's really nice. Yeah.
And I mean, it's a blended whiskey, so it's not as much as worth as a single malt, but it's still worth a few pennies.
Yeah, that's great. And the good thing about those is that they don't change. They don't change in the bottle. Whiskey doesn't in the bottle. So
I've had this. God, it was my granddad's, and he died in 1984, and it hasn't lost any colour. It hasn't lost anything. I'll never ever drink it, but it's an unusual shaped bottle as well. That's what makes it rare, because it's in an unusual bottle, and it's got the royal approval of the late George. So yeah, I reckon this is round about 1934, 35.
Yeah.
It was 35 he died.
Yeah. But the style of the bottle looks very 1930s, doesn't it? It looks very sort of Art Deco.
Very, very
That's a
1930s.
really cool bottle. Yeah, design.
Bauhaus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like most of the architecture of the time. It's got like the studs like
Oh,
the
yeah.
rivets.
My
Okay.
turn.
Sauterne.
1967.
Wow.
Turn.
Wow.
Oh wow! God, that's as nearly as old as me.
As beautiful as that. It's actually as old as me. I was born in 1967. So
Oh, 66.
Right.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
older than that wine.
it's 56 years old. This bottle. So
Wow.
probably gonna crack it open at my daughter's wedding this year in October. And
I've even got a bottle of champagne. I don't know what year that
have
is.
some wedding cake.
That's the true French. That's the true original French press.
That's
Yeah.
an interesting variant on one of the segment of Simon stream.
I haven't even opened this. I don't know how old it is.
Oh, it's enough Moet.
Oh, really?
Nice.
I mean, I've been round the champagne distillery. Well, where they do it.
With the glasses, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what year this is. I've been round the
But
pint.
champagne, it's only a new fad to say that champagne has years and all that. Like it's kind of controversial. Like champagne it holds normally like whiskey, but Moet is like it's like the fancy bottle you get at the Walmart in
Right.
France. Moet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing special.
Yeah. No, Moet, and Veuve Clicquot is, in my opinion, even overrated. But that's like the top-selling champagne out here, you know. And
Yeah. Last time I went to see my family in France, I talked about a guy. We were in a grocery store because in France, as Stunty said, you can find champagne in at Walmart.
right.
And the guy said you should buy that one, and the champagne named Victoire. It was half of the price as Moet and all the usual suspects. It was pretty good.
Did they sell Salon at Walmart there?
It wasn't France in kind of It wasn't it was not in Walmart. We don't have Walmart in France, but just to give you the reference. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like a big box store like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do know there is a store that you guys have out there that I learned about is the Aldi Markets.
That's German.
We have
Is
Aldi.
that German? They
Yeah,
had
we have Aldi, yeah.
Yeah, they were all over France when we were in France.
Yeah.
Great little
There's some
stores.
quite nice beers in there.
And now
If
we
you
have
don't do it-
over here.
Yeah, at really good prices as well, aren't they? Yeah. So if everybody's showing booze, then yeah, I mean, whiskey's my thing.
What do you got, Mike?
This is a Brook Laddie,
Malt. Yeah,
Isla. This is an Isla malt.
nice.
Which is my favourite. I prefer the island, particularly Isla.
Yeah,
Very sort of peaty. So I've got another one that's
right.
Lagavulin, another Isla sort of single malt. But
Those are
I've got
big
quite a few of these.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to show the wine that we have in the house, it'd be a bit embarrassing. I think it's very much it's Chateau Tesco, you know.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it tastes good. It tastes good, you know. But,
Well, don't worry about it, Mike. I think it's more embarrassing when you have wine that you decide you can't even afford to drink it.
I was going to ask about this, yeah, because sometimes you see wine. Wine comes up at auction and it's absolutely ridiculous prices, and you think, well, at what point are you paying more than the sort of the amount of pleasure that you could actually possibly get out of drinking a bottle of wine?
Yeah.
Do you guys like Devo? The group Devo?
The band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The band? Yeah. So I was lucky enough to. He's another celebrity winemaker. He's been making wine for about 15 years now, and he only has two. He has a rosé and a Pinot Noir that is from Pommard clones. So he got very serious into wine. And Gerald Casali, the bass player, I'm fortunate enough to get to drink wine with him. He comes to our store and does tastings. We were the first ones to actually sell his wine retail when he brought it over here.
and he's super nice guy, man. Really, really nice, and very lucky to have. I had him sign all my Devo records. You know, he was nice enough to do that. When he does the tastings, you should see it. It's a blast. There's all these old Devo fans that come with their energy domes. Remember the energy domes?
Yeah.
And they're he's really gracious. He signs autographs everything for them, autographs their bottles and stuff. And the good thing is that he's made a good wine. It's grown in Sonoma, but like I said, he uses Pomard clones and is very serious about his winemaking. And I think he's 70, either 76 or 78 years old, and he just had a baby with his wife of I think she's 27. Rockstar.
You know,
Yeah.
the problem with wine compared to vinyl records is that because it's booze, you can't ship it, you can't sell it as a private person, or you can, but you can't do it legally.
Yeah. You got to tell them it's olive oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's liquid, it's liquid, but it's olive oil.
And nice. Yeah.
Wrap it up really good and conceal it with paper, bubble wrap, and then some kind of paper over it. And that's the best way to get it through.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, it's kind of logical. Yeah. One time, about 20 years ago, to go to Reims, the city that is the capital of Champagne, they were opening a new venue, and they had there was a press trip that I was invited to, and they had Slint, reformed Slint, the American punk rock band, and Stereolab opening for it. So I went there, and then for 2 days they made us go through different cellars in Reims. And that's when you learn that the best champagne, it doesn't leave, it stays there. There's no,
exactly,
it's impossible that any of the champagne I drank there you could find commercially anywhere, even in a fancy shop. Impossible.
Right. I've been at the Piper High Set champagne house, and I tasted some amazing champagne that I've never. And they said you won't taste this anywhere but here.
Right. In Lanson, Champagne Lanson has. When I was there, they took us on a tour, and there is 8 miles of tunnels underneath the winery, where during World War II they were hiding all of their champagne from the troops, from Hitler's troops, because they were confiscating everything. But down under those tunnels, my God, you're right, Stunty. They had cages with bar. It looked like an old prison down there.
Yeah.
The champagne was behind bars, in these alcoves off of the tunnels that were down there, and there was mold. Everything was moldy down there. But there was champagne from 1985, 1976. They had them in years, just all lined up, full of dust and mold. It was a beautiful, beautiful sight. I had chills when I was down there, because of
mold is life. Huh? The best sausage, you have to have mold on it. The best wine, and the best cheese, obviously. Yeah.
Right. Not so much on your records. I hate when I get those.
Exactly. That was my next point.
Yeah, you're getting about that, Steve. When with the Piper High Sec, their cellar down there are so big. It's like you go getting this little fairground ride.
Yeah.
A thing, and it takes you round because you'd never walk it.
Right.
And it took about 3/4 of an hour, even in this little thing. Anyway, I'll go soon. Before I go, you about cheese. Don't forget there is a musician that is a cheesemaker as well.
Spectrum is making a good point. I think we've lost 15 viewers since we started to talk about booze.
Alex James.
No, maybe we'll gain them back if we start. Romuald, maybe we'll gain them back if we start drinking the booze.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah. Alex James of Blur makes cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He's a cheesemaker.
Blur's performing in Pomona, California, at the Fox Theater on April 18th, I think. 2,000 seat theater in Pomona. where you guys know who Alex Record Safari is?
Yeah.
You know Alex. So he used to curate for the Glass House down there in Pomona. That's where the Glass House Records was. But the Fort Theater is right by the Glass House. So they're going to be there in a couple of weeks performing. Maybe I'll go hit them up for some cheese.
Yes, go hit him up some cheese. Anyway, on that note, I've got to go because I've got another live stream to go on now.
Well,
Yeah,
go
thank you.
on.
Thank you very much, Iain.
Kindly fuck off, Nadine.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I will see you all hopefully next time.
It was a good surprise. Thanks for joining.
I do watch, you know. I do know these things. I'll definitely see you, Mike, on Thursday. I'll see Stunty sometime. Lovely to chat to you, Steve. I have watched your channel.
Nice to meet you too. I'll follow you. I'll subscribe to your channel. I'll get dialed in. Same with you, Mike.
Oh, cheers, Steve. Yeah, I'm already subbed to you. I like the fact that it's not just vinyl records. Anyway, see you, Iain.
Bye-bye.
See you. Yeah. Yes, I like the food side of the whole thing. I think it's great.
See, there's my dilemma, Stunty, right there. I was telling Stunty and Vinyl French Addict the other in the beginning that I'm going to actually be separating the two channels. I'm going to start strictly vinyl one coming this week, and then I'll still have my food channel, but I'm just trying to be considerate of the people that I think more people come to the channel and are discouraged by having to sift through both. You know, for instance, someone like you, if you really do like the food, and you'll go there when you feel like watching.
Yeah, I'll do both. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for the support. I appreciate that.
Right. Excellent.
I really want to learn how to say your name correctly. Romuald?
Romuald.
Romuald?
Mu.
Romu.
Mu. U.
Romu.
Romu. Ald.
Romuald.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, perfect.
Romuald.
Oh, yes.
Wow, that's a lot of effort.
I know.
It is, isn't it? I've been on live streams with Rabu for a long time, and I still can't say it, can I?
So I want to just thank you guys for having me. I'm going to have to exit myself as well, and I think this went really well for you. You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Yeah, it's been a
always
pleasure.
been supportive of you and what you practice, and yeah, it's fun to watch your videos. And Stunty, great to get to spend some time with you.
Sure, I'll try to get privately to you because I have a question for you about.
Okay, you got it, buddy. And Mike, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Steve.
I'll get subs to your channel as well.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
To everybody.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm always I'm regularly how should I put it, like Mike's music showings is in the direction I'm always interested in with UK music. Steve, you and Steve. I said that on Simon's stream like 2 weeks ago, but I kind of feel kinship there.
Well, it takes all sorts, doesn't it? Yeah. So I mean, where do you stand musically then, Stunty? I mean, what's your, what are your all-time favourites?
Oh. Wouldn't be easier if we talked about movies, but right. I think we're not going to derail Romuald's stream again. Start like it. There's I don't see anything linear about music anymore. So I have a strong affinity for music that I would consider. Okay, so for me, there's 3 types of music, and there's 2 that are like appealing to me: the academy, people who are inventing stuff, and the punks, people who don't know how to do it, but who will do it anyways and manage to come up with something novel along the way. And in between, there's more traditionalists, like people who, like good students. I'm less interested in that. But the punk mentality in music, I think, is very British. There's obviously roots to that with the class society and pre-Thatcherism, post-Thatcherism. So a lot of music from the UK, starting, I would say, with Cabaret Voltaire. Cabaret Voltaire would be a starting point, one of the starting points for me.
Right, yeah, that's not bad. But I mean, you're right. I mean, this idea that sort of, music, it's not a linear thing. And for me, sort of like the stuff that has really been sort of, really of my heart, sort of, it changes. It changes. The stuff that still sort of comes with me, but I'm not as interested anymore. And I mean, when I first started, collecting records, well, when I was, quite a young teenager, and I started to have a little bit of money of my own, and I was quite obsessed by the Beatles. So it was just, myself and my friends, we were quite obsessed by the Beatles. And by about 1975, I'd kind of had enough, and I moved on. And I was listening to other stuff. People like
it's
Bowie
not just that you moved on. Obviously, the music had moved on as well, because they didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get to sort of 1976, and punk comes along, and haven't looked back since. It's my passion.
When I say Cabaret Voltaire, it's because when they were like in Sheffield, at the university, art students, discovering William Burroughs with the Cut Up, naming themselves Cabaret Voltaire. So already like 2 cultural pillars, not from the UK, but doing their own thing with it, using tape recorders. The saxophone was in the early recordings, and probably not fully knowing what they were doing, but doing it anyways.
Yeah.
So, and people say Cabaret Voltaire is industrial music, but for me, like the philosophy behind the music is exactly the same as the Sex Pistols, as the Buzzcocks, as Wire, as This Heat, probably more This Heat. I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Yeah, I can see that totally. But I mean, I was lucky enough to meet Pauline Murray, from Penetration. She was doing a book signing, and she's an absolutely lovely woman, and it's really difficult to sort of really kind of sort of believe that the sort of this lovely old lady that sort of like that you're chatting with in a record store, was one time a sort of firebrand sort of punk rocker. But she, when she was talking about music, and sort of the sort of stuff that she was listening to before punk, it was really glam rock was the thing that really sort of made her sort of sit up and listen. And she said it was the attitude. It was just, it was a little bit different. It wasn't, it wasn't traditional rock and roll music. It was, it had a sort of, had a style all of its own, and it was, a very British thing as well, I think.
It's quite interesting, though, all these bands from the late 70s, like you named Pauline, but there's also Penny Rimbaud, and a lot of, like, if I just name check a woman, but another band that a little later that probably Iain would have been more curious to discuss, like a band like Napalm Death, which is thrash, punk, grindcore. The earliest, before they were even doing that music, Mick Harris, the drummer, and Justin Broderick, the guitar player, they were doing tape music, like weird, like minimal electronics and all that. And there's so many bands and artists in punk in the 70s, early 80s that were actually doing stuff with electronics that the mainstream audience never really saw. They knew the bands they became famous with, but the stuff that they were doing in the tape culture was always like remained kind of underground, but was like probably a huge fuel and motor for these artists, which is very exciting when you realize that. Salut Fred.
Yeah,
Bonjour.
yeah. And I mean, you can see how sort of artists sort of progress as well, can't you? And particularly the sort of the transition from from punk rock, which was really very, very rock and roll, to post punk, which was much more experimental.
Yes, but at the same time, when Crass is doing in like 82, I think, a track called The Walls, which is basically when Crass is doing disco, is it post punk to do disco?
Well, yeah. I mean, exactly. But I mean, I think, well, if it sounds good, then it's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I think it's difficult. Sometimes for bands to sort of get out of a rut that they get into. That their fans expect them to be the same as they always were. And I think sort of with sort of punk. I mean, the Clash were a case in point. The Clash very quickly went off into all sorts of different sort of directions. That they, particularly with sort of reggae, and and then they're very much into sampling as well. Sort of later on. And it's
the story how Joe Strummer became the singer of the Clash.
I don't think I do. No.
Well, originally they had another singer who got kicked out of the band and who was one of the members of Alternative TV. I don't remember his name right now, but I'm sure that Fred might be of help there.
Hang on.
I remember there was an article in The Wire about it, and an interview with him, and it was like the saddest story because he was at one point part of like 3 huge, very important bands, and every time he got kicked out of the band right before they became.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome to Fred.
I'm wondering who it was. I'm sure I've got an Alternative TV.
Yeah, welcoming my 2 new friends on the panel, Mr. Fred. I'm really glad to have you on the show.
Fred.
Oh, hi. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I don't know you guys.
How amazing is that? You have 3 French people, one from Canada, one from Sweden, and one from Australia.
We're taking over the world.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
welcome,
this is.
And welcome to Mr. Spektrum aus Deutschland, Germany.
No.
Belgium.
Oh, Belgique. Okay, Belgium. Okay, yeah.
Belgium, but not from the French-speaking part. So
yeah, from the.
But which part of the world are you planning to invade, Fred?
I'm all peace and love. I'm not gonna invade anything. I'm not gonna invade anything. No. Thanks for doing a stream at a very reasonable hour.
Fuck you.
I can actually join. Yeah.
Do you guys know each other? Do you guys know Fred or?
Well, it's a bit difficult now. Fred. Which Fred are you talking about?
Yeah. You, Fred.
Well, me.
You.
Well, I know. Yeah, sort of.
That's a very polite answer.
no, it's yeah, no, faces, yeah, I do. I've never, with some of you, I've never interacted, but I know you are.
I'm very new to the. I'm very new to the YouTube. I only have like 3 videos, and I've only been here like a couple of months. So yeah, but
All right.
I try to join in on a lot of streams and talk to people about music. Something
So
I should.
what's the name of your channel?
It's in my name right here, Spectrum Archives.
We can't see it. I can't see it.
Romuald has to take away the comment there so we can see.
Yeah, and I'm not coming here to talk about Belgian fries. No, not today.
Yeah, there's a museum, isn't there, of fries in Bruges?
That is quite possible. Do you think that I, a Belgian guy, would go to a fries museum in Bruges? No.
I'm sure you wouldn't. I'm sure you've got more self-respect than that.
It's the excursion you go to in primary school. Just going to fries.
From what I've seen of Frederick's channel and what he talks about, he is kind of let's be judgmental a little bit. A little bit of a more interesting channel in terms of music focus than your average VC channel. See, now I'm the bad guy, but it's okay.
No. I don't want to. With all the, I have a lot of respect for the classics. The Beatles and the Miles Davises and all that. But I don't want to. I want to talk about music that I am passionate about. So maybe I can find someone in the outskirts of the vinyl community who shares my interest.
Let's say that you still live in the present and maybe and hopefully a little bit in the future when it comes to music, which is sometimes a rare commodity in the VC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A lot of way too retro porn kind of attitude, like in the VC. It's like, people just idolize the Beatles and the Stones and whatnot, and very few listen to new shit that's interesting. And that's I completely agree. We've talked about this, Stunty, anyway.
Yeah.
And since Fred here, Big Star, is too big for us, so that he would describe his channel. He has a channel for like longer than us. He's been doing this for like how long, Fred? Like 10, 12 years now?
Yeah, since 2011. Yeah, I was probably one of the very first ones to do vinyl videos on YouTube, but I never thought I would be doing videos in 2024. But I don't know, like I've gone on and off. Like I've made videos and I stopped, and I made, I sort of missed the interaction. For me, it was more about the interaction with, people who understood what you were talking about, like, because you don't meet them in real life very often. So it's
back in the day, internet was very different, and I remember a guy who started his cooking channel 15 years ago. The purpose was to be more in connection with his family in France. It was a friend in France to have the better, to share. Was what your motivation at the beginning, back in this 2011 days when the internet wasn't today's internet?
The way I started is, I don't know if I've ever said this, but well, I was collecting records and largely talking to myself, really, because you go to record stores and you talk to the people there, but and I started looking on YouTube. I found someone on YouTube was showing records. It was way back, whatever, 2009 or something. I found someone who was showing records, and then I started searching, record digging, like I started searching on YouTube, and then 2 or 3 people, started to pop up, and then there was maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20 people that I'd found that actually were showing records. And I thought, well, fuck it, I can do this too. I mean, I've got a camera here. And so one day I just decided to make a video just for the hell of it. And then you sort of started building an audience and connections and stuff. And, and you sort of never stop really. But it was just out of sheer, motivation to meet other people that could talk about music other than just because my wife was just sick of listening to me talking about the records I had bought or something. Like she was like, okay. Anyway,
my partner hasn't watched any of my videos, so I share your pain.
He's waiting till you get good, Frederick.
Yeah, I think it's a good motivation. During the COVID, I was starting to do a capture to share with my family and friends on the WhatsApp group, but no one cared about. So I thought, okay, maybe I have to find the right audience for that, and starting a channel and finding people that would be interested about what I like, and this is what a community is all about. And yeah.
Thumbs up, Fred, because 10 years ago, the only thing I was watching on YouTube were fail army videos. So yeah. But I respect of course, I respect the people talking about the Beatles and the Stones. They have thousands of viewers, so there's an audience for that. But there's an audience for everything, I think. So, and that's why I try to. I don't want to be pretentious or anything, but I go on the jazz bums, the stream of the jazz bums, and they talk about reissues like 3 hours. And sometimes I just pop up a new jazz release like, hey, this could be interesting. You might like this, or because one of the jazz bums said in an earlier video, I want to look into more new jazz stuff, and but they just keep on talking about Blue Note, which is very interesting. I love what they talk about. They know what jazz is all about, but
do they?
Ooh, don't start, Stunty.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think that there's so much out there, isn't there? And there's there's more and more music sort of being produced every day, and I think it's a shame to be sort of so set in your ways and say, well, this is the music I like, and I'm sticking with it, which is fine. But I think, broaden your horizons a little bit, just, find something new, be a bit adventurous. And that's what I love about record collecting.
There's also, I don't know if it's an American thing, but it seems to me, and it's not all the jazz bums, but like a little bit in there and in other sides of American VC, that tends to approach music from a kind of almost museum perspective, which I find very off-putting. It seems like it's again the authority figure confirmation bias, like things have to be official before you allow yourself to invest something from you in it. And I remember when I was a teen, like music used to be about taking chances a little bit, like, and this whole thing about building a community to create a sort of confirmation bias, I think, is really off-putting to me. Of course, it doesn't mean that there's nothing positive about it, that there's nothing to take from it. But for me, there's something, yeah.
I understand what you say, but I watched, well, to give the example, but because we're talking about, I watched the jazz bums, and I constantly have a pen and a paper next to me, just writing stuff down, like they are recommending, because I know about jazz, but I don't know jazz like they do or something. So I'm there's a lot to learn everywhere. There's a lot to learn from every channel. I believe.
Fred's channel. Nowadays, his modus operandi is like he does like one French and one English video every weekend, and he shows records and talks about them like VC. And
on two different channels. Yeah.
And like if he talks about something I don't know, I will go and look it up and make my own mind.
It's not very many things you don't know, Stunty, to be fair.
No, come on. There's a lot of there's also all the stuff you forget because like it's not necessarily for you, or it wasn't for you at the time you discovered it. Like the I guess everyone here can say the same thing. The amount of stuff you forgot compared to the stuff that you know is
Yeah, I think for me, one of the best things about when I watch my favorite people on the VCs is to remind myself of the records that I have already, and oh, I haven't played this for I don't know how long. Let's just let's just dig that out. Almost more than oh, I need to buy this. Like it's. I mean, sure, you find things that you often find things that you sometimes find things that you want to investigate or but more and more as a because when you've got a sizable record collection, there's plenty of things that you ignore for a long time, and you just think, oh, okay, well, I haven't played this. Let's put it, and I love that kind of inspiration personally, more than discovering a new record that I need to buy.
And now because you started your channel in French pretty recently. Did it change the way you have exchange, or really you are rediscovering your own material through the connection you are making with this new channel?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I don't know how to answer this question really. It's just another way of. I think it was more to connect with other people, because as Stunty sort of hinted before, like when I joined the chat just earlier, you were talking about the French vinyl community, the German vinyl community, and the differences between, saying that it's true that without being, I'm not, I don't want to sound like I'm. You got to be careful what you say sometimes because you don't want to offend people or whatnot. But it's true that I would say the French vinyl community, it doesn't tend to come out of its shell, like, because I think what we said is a little bit of language barrier as well. A lot of them just want or are afraid to, for whatever reason. And so making a French channel was a way of like, we can just interact directly, like, as opposed to, I make a video every week. If you can't understand what I'm saying, then you won't watch. So I just make a video in the language that you can understand me, and then I make connections with you. Like, it was more like that.
Okay.
But, basically you're trying to be the Mélenchon of the VC.
No. Fuck off. Mélenchon.
No, yeah, but I
no,
understand.
but you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of people wouldn't watch in English because they just can't follow.
A good thing about Fred's channel for everyone here, and is that since he's been doing it for like 13 years now, it's a very positive message for everyone, because as you see his collection grow, you see that his house is also growing. Over time he's got a bigger, like, I remember when he had like this little closet where the bike was with the records as well. Now he's got like a very nice living place where
yes, soon we will all have a house like the size of Mazzy's house. Mazzy's house is huge, and that's our future, right? Is that what you're saying, Stunty?
Well, I'm just saying that I hope like the house grows in itself organically, like as
I can guarantee you, Stunty, that my house hasn't grown for. I've been in this house for 20 years now, and it really hasn't grown. It's just the same space. I think it's arranged differently. Like when I used to make videos in a room that's just next to me here. That's the one with the bike. And I used to make videos there because I could shut myself in and talk without being heard by, because I always felt a little bit self-conscious making. I don't know how you feel, people making videos in front of the people that that live with you, if you have someone living with you. But I always feel just a little bit stupid and pretentious talking about records in front of people. I'm like, just shut the door. And, like, I always make my videos when my girlfriend is not home, or it's often like, oh, she goes somewhere, and so I'll make a video quickly. I mean, it's so stupid. But yeah, my life circumstances obviously have changed because, well, I had a wife and she's gone, and that's why I think I was thinking about this the other day. It was to overcome some kind of, or to actually turn my mind off this whole illness thing. I rearranged the house. like there was a point where I was like, oh, because my wife was really sick for a while, and I thought, oh, I'll just do something else. I'll just move the records somewhere else, just to actually just stop thinking about it, like, and after the fact, I thought, oh yeah, I did it for that reason, and now the records are, they're in a different space, which is why you think the house looks bigger.
I just wanted to jokingly hope that, like, I could tell my bank guy that, like, oh, just because of the mere fact that I'm collecting records, my house is going to increase in value as well. Because
No, but Fred, I understand you when you said that you a kind of reappreciation of the music that you have by making these videos. Because since joining some of the streams here, I bought some new music thanks to this guy right here, entre autres, yeah. But I also, like, there was, I think it was Friday on the Jazz Bums, that someone was showing a Japanese jazz record, and I was like, that seems interesting. And I started looking up, and it appeared that she was the mother of a singer of which I have an album. So I got that album, and I played it, and I started talking about that. So actually I've been listening more to the music that I have since joining these channels. So that's that, and making videos, of course.
Yeah. I'm the same. I always make a point of listening to the records that I'm going to show.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
Because otherwise I think, well, what's the point? What's the point of getting this record out and then just putting it back again? After I've done the video, I need to listen to it. If I'm going to talk about it, it must be worth listening to. So I listen to it.
Yeah, isn't that called the imposter syndrome? I have that. Thinking that a lot about something. People ask one question, and you just don't know anything about it. The imposter syndrome. Anyway, sorry, Fred, I interrupted.
No, sorry, it's my fault. I thought you'd finished, and then it's difficult on these streams because there's no taking turn cue thing. And I was going to say,
someone has to moderate this. Someone has to moderate.
Sorry, what's your name, English man? What's your first name? I don't even know.
I'm Mike.
Mike. I'm Fred. Nice to meet you. But I was going to say, my main series on my channel is called Revolutions, and the whole concept is what have I played this week? I would never show records that I haven't played. I think it's completely and utterly it's so ostentatious. You see these vinyl finds, people just pull out like record. They haven't even listened to them. Sometimes they're shrinking. They're still sealed. Like you think, what are you showing us that you can spend money? That's really all you're showing us at the moment. And I find that really, like, I've stopped watching new vinyl finds and making them myself a long time ago.
The funny thing, Fred, is that, like what you just described, I do that myself all the time.
Yeah.
But no, I do show and play records I have never played before.
Yeah.
But the reality, like, it can be twofold. It's because obviously most of my purchases, I have listened to them before I get the record. That's how I choose. But I also find sometimes interesting when you kind of start to build like a sort of rendezvous, like I do with my streams.
Yeah.
That I made a bet on that record, and I'm like crash testing it and myself in front of you live sometimes. I find it a bit fun, like, because sometimes I will be like, why did I buy this? And now everyone can see it.
I mean, with your show, it's somewhat different. I think that, as you were actually playing the records live and everything, and but I'm talking more about people who, like, as soon as they've got new records, they just make a new vinyl finds, and they really haven't heard the records, and they haven't got anything of substance to say about the records, and I think it's a shame, because if we're here to actually propagate and spread the, like, information about, like, stuff that we think is good or stuff we think is worth listening to, if we haven't listened to it ourselves, it's a little bit, like, it's go, oh here's a record that I think it's good. But like, I think it's got to be a point at which you endorse the shit you're showing because you know it. I mean, in your case, as you said, you listen to the records, or you've listened to the records extensively before, so that's fine. But I'm sure there are people.
No, but just think about it. If people kind of know me for being this big Nurse with Wound Otaker fan or whatever, let's say I get the latest record, and okay, I'm going to listen to it for the very first time with all of you guys, with the chance that I'm going to say, actually, I wish I didn't buy that one. I think it has its value as well. It could be entertaining. Like, I'm just thinking there's so many different ways still available to all of us to show and talk about records. Like, we've only scratched the surface. Sorry?
There is a person who has a channel, and sometimes he makes videos where he picks like 5 records, like, say, I don't know, on Monday, and he listens to them, and at the end of the week he makes a video. Should I keep it, or should I, get rid of it? And it's really interesting. I thought of doing that.
That's Dale, isn't it? Gatefold 33.
Yeah, that's probably him. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. When he holds up 2 records and he says, "I'm keeping one and I'm getting rid of one," and I always guess wrong every time. I guess wrong.
So that's
he's a great guy. I really love his channel.
Yeah, he does good videos. Yeah, but it's funny, actually, something happened to me today that I'm really embarrassed to say. Speaking of what we are talking about, but I was at a record fair. There was a small record fair in the city. It wasn't very interesting. I only bought like 2 records or something, but I saw one record. It was this one from Maze, which is
Hold on, I make you big.
Yeah, it's funk disco, I presume. But I only knew the sleeve, and I didn't remember why it was on my wish list. So I have no idea what this will be. But I bought it, it was on my wish list. So I said, well, I probably put it for a reason there,
And that could be fun to just watch you discover live or rediscover live why you had this on your want list. That would be entertaining, probably.
Maybe I should do that. Yeah, maybe I should do that.
That's exciting. That's exciting. It's exciting for you, and it'll be interesting for an audience. It's great.
Yeah.
I used to have a Facebook group. I'm not on Facebook at all anymore, but with a bunch of friends fellow DJs, and we called it the Crashed Test Club. Every time we saw a record, an upcoming record or a new record that might be interesting, we would put it in the list and ask for the others to try to find reasons to dismiss it so that the collective mind would just like, okay, no, this is not worth our time. And we did that for a few years, and in the end, I'm strong-minded enough to not need that, but it was still fun to do it and to share like the process with others, because like the VC is often like show and tell, and I think that like what we're doing, some of what we're doing right now is, for me, the most interesting, the talking about the process. That's
Well, just a small detail. The other one that I bought was this. You probably know this.
Yeah.
It's not a
With Acid FL is
yes.
the big track. Yeah,
This
I was almost playing that on my stream on Friday. I was looking for it. I wanted to open. This is like one of the it's the greatest techno track from France ever.
probably, yeah. So this is Laurent Garnier, right? Here he is.
This is actually Chaz. Chaz did most of the music because back then Laurent Garnier was a DJ and he was not doing much. And it's Ludovic Navarre who is mostly known as Saint-Germain. So
Yeah.
it's basically Saint-Germain with Chaz featuring Laurent Garnier as the. But it was originally released on a Detroit techno label.
Yeah. And wasn't Laurent Garnier the DJ at the Hacienda in Manchester for a while?
Kind of, but like that's the story, the rewritten history. Because when he arrived and was playing at the Hacienda, he was actually playing indie rock. That's what he was famous for. He was not one of the pioneers of acid house, but he was like doing the indie afternoons at the Hacienda when acid house became big, and he was an opportunist in the best possible way. I'm not being critical about it, but he was not one of the the guys who introduced the music. He was just there at the right time.
At the right time in the right place. But I actually discovered this track in Brussels. We have the Fuse Club, which is like one of the biggest. I think I can say one of the biggest techno clubs in Europe. Probably.
No, I played there 3 times, and in terms of size, it's not at all one of the biggest. But historically, it's like a very important.
No, not in size, but in recognition and fame.
It's like a 400 people club, right?
Yeah, it's not really that big in size, but big in reputation. That's what I wanted to say. And they put out a CD in the mid-90s somewhere with I Love Fuse, and it was all post-club, the kind of techno music that you would listen to when you come home from the club. And Acid Eiffel was on there, and that's what really drew me into techno, because this is what techno
journey, that track. It's
incredible. Yeah. Well, our host is back. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes we can get influenced by the VC. I have maybe an example. Michael 45 has his weekly live stream with Thomas Busk, and they were once stream dedicated to Fela Kuti and all this Afrobeat. Yeah. And I'm not really familiar, but it's maybe I will fall into that rabbit hole very very quickly and very soon. And I found that record, and this is a completely blind purchase. I had no idea. I don't know the cover, the story. The students, they were in New York from Africa, and just to say, yeah. So do you know that? Do you know that one, Stunty?
Yeah, it's a classic. Yeah.
Okay. What's the name of the band?
Sorry, once again.
What's the name of the band? I didn't
Sol
see the name.
Sol Makusa. Sol Makosa.
Oh, that's the name of the band. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's so many different versions of that record. That record sold like probably millions over time. But taking chance with music. It's always surprising when you hear people in the VC who, maybe not surprising, but like how old are you, Mike, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. How old am I? I'm 66.
Yeah. 66. So how does the taking chance factor impact? How important is it to you now, and how important was it like 20, 30 years ago?
Right. Well, I think when I first started buying music, an awful lot of it was taking chances, and we were talking earlier on, weren't we, about pre-internet days, and how you get the music press, maybe some decent DJs on the radio would recommend stuff, but I used to just sort of dig through the crates in local record shop and sometimes it's about sort of making connections. If somebody is playing on an album that you don't know, or a new artist you don't know, but you know that person. I mean, I discovered Lou Reed that way. I can remember sort of Mick Ronson was credited with sort of guitar, and I thought, yeah, I'll listen to this guy, and I mean, I can't say I'm a big Lou Reed fan, but it's all about that. Just you make connections, or you just talk to your friends.
Yeah.
And they've just discovered something out of the ordinary. But things sort of are a bit different now, and I'm always looking for something that's a bit different. And you can always you can listen to the stuff now, can't you? If you think, oh, that might be interesting, then you can go and listen to it. So it's not so much blind buys anymore.
Up until like 15 years ago or so, we were buying records to discover them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not quite the same now, is it? Although
it's completely different, I would say. It's like a complete different equation.
Yeah, I mean, you're still discovering new music, but but it's a bit safer, and
I mean,
you can do it in the comfort of your own home.
We were spending money to discover something. Now we're spending money to confirm something.
I suppose we're going
to like it.
Yeah. I mean, I still make mistakes from time to time.
It's like the difference between someone who's building a house and someone who's inventing architecture.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, I'm sort of back in the early to mid sort of 80s. I got very much into world music. Partly because I was getting a little bit fed up with, mainstream.
And not just because Peter Gabriel was very good at marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But there's an awful lot of, I mean, I recall that sort of France was a really big sort of centre for world music in Europe. An awful lot of sort of, really good sort of, particularly African music, came through Paris. And I've always had a thing for sort of for French music anyway. Yeah. And it's a pity that, I mean, maybe I'm listening to or watching all the wrong channels, but you don't see an awful lot of sort of music that isn't from the UK or the US.
And pardon me for saying that, but even when you see a lot of music from the UK, it's like the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion, because there's so much incredible music from the UK from the 80s and from the 90s that barely anyone is talking about. Like in my stream every week, I try to have, like, as I previewed a little bit on Simon's stream the other time, like Kevin Harrison. He did like great stuff, but like, of course, no one is going to talk about it because no one knows about it. But now we can, because we have the internet. We can discover it, and we just need some of us to be a little bit, to bring some joy about it, because I
agree with you totally. And I mean, I've never. I suppose it's part of my personality. I don't know, but whenever anything gets really popular, I tend to go off it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, well, if so many people like it, there must be something wrong with it. But I just, so I'm always looking for different stuff. But it's quite difficult to keep up, and there's an awful lot of stuff from the 80s and 90s, as you say, and stuff that you know, you live through it, and you never, you think, I've never heard this stuff before.
You have a pretty decent collection of French artists, chansons françaises. When did it really start, or what is your favorite? I would say, artist.
For me,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's certain stuff that I really like. I've got a thing for sort of 60s French pop.
Yeah.
I just I just love the stuff. But more sort of modern stuff. There's a band called Junior. I don't know if you've heard them. They're an all-female band, and they seem to have sort of disappeared in the last couple of years. I mean, I was due to see them, back in, about sort of 3 or 4 years ago, and then sort of COVID came along. The gig was cancelled, and they never came back to Leeds, and they don't seem to have produced anything sort of since. But they're very much sort of. I mean, I think they describe themselves as yéyé noir, which I think is quite a good description, really. It's sort of pop punk, I suppose, in a way, but difficult to describe them. There's also another band called Lepe, EPEE. Oh, yeah, that I really like, and.
I recently discovered a great French band, but I
yes.
What were they? See. I'm just gonna look for the records. Oh, here it is. It's a bit hard to describe, but I really like this album, and it's. I hope this show's good. They are called L'Impératrice.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a bit electronic, a bit. Yeah, French pop. I really like, and the cover is great too. It's all glittery. But I discovered this at what was the Balade Sonore, the shop.
In Paris. Yeah, it's a great shop.
Yeah, this is, if you like French pop music with a modern twist, this is a good place to start. I like this one. Yeah. But
all right.
Because obviously because we have two languages in Belgium, there was a lot of crossover from French artists in the 60s and the 70s, but that's kind of went away. Now we don't really know anything about modern French pop music. We just know our Serge Gainsbourgs and our Vanessa Paradis and stuff like that, but we don't really know what's happening right now in France, or much less than in the 80s and the 70s. Yeah.
It's quite difficult to know and understand modern French pop music, because all the TV talent shows have taken over so much. I guess it's the same everywhere, but like France has a lot of people who do music, and like to understand if this is a pure commercial venture or someone who's just using the system, there's so many new artists coming from this machine that you have to process before you can like understand if this is something that is actually genuine. Right now in France, there's a huge debate about what's her name, Nakamura.
Aya Nakamura.
Yeah.
I had never heard about her.
She's been around for quite a few years. She's been a long time. She's been around for about 10 years, I think. Yeah.
Invited to sing at the Olympics or something. I didn't really follow.
Or there's like this whole thing is like all the hard right is like, like she doesn't speak French well, so she shouldn't represent me, when like makes no sense. Didi Bridgewater sang at the Olympics in France, but like the way she sings, where she's coming from is obviously from a very French experience of post-colonialism, which means that it is at the very, very least interesting sociologically and linguistically. And then you like it or you don't. But there's a lot of music like that in France because of how France is so much a product of post-colonialism, much more so than any other land, in my opinion, in the Western world.
Yeah, probably.
At least culturally.
Yeah. I think the dominant trend in France for a long time now has been hip hop, the default thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's the number one kind of. I mean, I think France was the first country to adopt hip hop after the US anyway, so it sort of stayed there. You know,
Yeah, for 30 years, hip hop has been the number one music in France.
Yeah, hip hop.
I
is
stopped
like,
at MC Solar, to be honest. I didn't
MC
look
Solar
further
is
than
great.
that, so,
Oh, so you mean you stopped at Serge Gainsbourg then?
Yeah. Yes.
when I-
Absolutely. No, but I think it's a bit reductive too because MC Solar had his own ideas, but yeah, recently I don't know. There's no recent hip hop in France that's captured my attention. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, but at the same time, like I had Sefiu as a guest to my radio show, who's a great he invented his whole thing about, like, he had his hit called Senegalo Ruskov, which was like kind of like a appropriation, not of the, you know, the American gangster type, but like the Russian mobster in Senegal, which is also interesting because Russia is really trying to take over Africa in many ways. But then now we have like one of the biggest hip hop bands of the past 10 years in France is PNL, who are like French suburban gypsies using autotune and being total gangsters, but also emotional. Like it's like kind of a it's so strange mixture.
Yeah, well, that's not going to play on the radio. That I can tell you that for sure. Yeah,
it's this kind of things that is huge in France, and half of France is totally ignoring it, like not voluntarily. They just don't know that it exists, and that is the current culture. Like there's such a big disconnect in France between what is culture and what is mainstream culture.
It's all bloody Maître Gims and bloody Booba and that
you know,
shit on the radio. It's like every time I go to France and I turn on the radio is turned on, you think, oh gosh, this is just like the same shit, but you know, like
but the same shit that you're talking about, Fred, would sound extremely exotic for anyone outside of France anyway.
I know, but you know what I mean? Like it's just like pop with a formula, you know, like it's cooked so that, you know, everyone can, you know, enjoy it.
What do you guys
enjoy it? Yeah.
What do you guys think of Charlotte Gainsbourg?
Yeah, she's all right. I mean, her music is
as an actress,
as a Nippo baby.
I'm a real fan. I'm you know, I've got to say,
yeah. I saw her live a couple of years ago. It was incredible. She was very shy. She was behind the lights most of the time. But I really like that on different albums, she works with different people. Like she made an album with Beck. She made an album with Air. You know, she chooses the right guys, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like what she does. I really like her. Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I don't find her stuff compelling in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, she has something. She has something to say. She makes decent albums. You know.
You know, a French singer that got some respect outside of France in the 80s because they were smart and went to hire Connie Plank to do the sound engineer on their album, just became extremely relevant in France last week when we passed, we put abortion right in the French constitution. And Catherine Ringer, the singer of Rita Mitsuko, yeah, she was invited by the French president to the ceremony about that, and he tried to you know, kiss her on the cheek, and she snubbed him like live.
Cool. I have that 12-inch single. What's and Dis-moi oui, Andy?
Andy,
Dis-moi oui.
I reckon, for my money, Marcia Baila is like the best French single of the 80s. It's so crazy.
But I have a colleague named Andy, and I always tease him with it. I say, "Dis-moi oui, Andy." But
Well, but you had all this French, like sleazy pop, like Axel Bauer, Le Cargo, Cargo de Nuit, Gashpati,
Etienne.
Etienne is like pornography.
Tiens le bien.
Tiens le bien.
Cargo de Nuit. Yeah, I love
It's
that.
a great song. But these things, like, could they exist and work in any other context than French language culture? Like, I don't think so.
I was listening to it's interesting. I was listening to a German music podcast the other day, and they were saying that Etienne was a massive hit in Germany as well.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
And
like in the 80s.
Voyage.
Yeah,
Germany.
very big in Germany too. So so I think it can travel. Like but it was funny to hear that. Etienne. Yeah. But we had lots of those kinds of one hit wonder. I mean, every country's got them, but in France, if you
Especially
grew up
in the 80s,
if you grew up in the 80s, there was so much stuff that at the time I thought, like we got bombarded with stuff at the time, and we probably didn't really appreciate it. But now, I listen to 80s French music, and I thought, this is fucking genius.
Yeah, Etienne is like, I got the 7-inch. The B-side is genius, but even Etienne, there are some parts, some bridges that are a bit cheesy, but like the good part in it is, it's insane.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Madonna has nothing on Gashpati.
Okay,
Recently I bought in a secondhand store an album from the debut album from Elie Medeiros.
Yeah,
what was the track?
Yeah.
What was the track on there?
I
love that song.
Which was produced by her husband back there. No, Ramucho Mata.
Yeah.
And Ramucho Mata, who's done, he's a friend of mine. He's done some really amazing post-punk records influenced by ethnographic. Like, he had Don Cherry, he had the guys from Magma, and that record with Toi Toi Mon Toi. If you look at the video, you have a young Ramucho who was the son of Ricardo Mata, the greatest Chilean surrealist painter, the brother of Gordon Mata Clark, the artist in New York who was like cutting buildings in half. And he was hanging out when he was 17. He was doing music for Laurie Anderson. He was hanging out with the Talking Heads, and then he comes back to France and does this music with Elie Medeiros.
Yeah, she was also on that Homeboy album by Don Cherry. I discovered.
Yeah, produced by Ramucho Mata.
Yeah,
it's a Ramucho Mata album essentially.
But the Elie and Techno records are really great too. Like they've got a lot of personality. Yeah, and Techno, I mean, obviously.
I mean, the true new wave in France was good. You had hit like Polaroid from Root. It's a great song.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very good French post-punk new wave. Yeah, there is a lot of it. Yeah, but.
And wasn't a lot of the stuff released on Celluloid Records? Or is that an American label? I don't know.
No. Celluloid is it's interesting because the sons of the guy from Celluloid, they are at every record fair, so they kind of still spread the word. And at the time, Celluloid also had a partnership with Z Records, which also had a French guy behind it.
Yeah.
It's
Michel Esteban, and what's the other guy? I can't remember. But Celluloid, it was I think it was Georges Caracos,
exactly.
BYG Records. He's the one who founded it. He was living in New York in the early 80s. He was a French guy, but I think he lived in. I think he founded it with. I can't remember who, but that was his Celluloid, and BYG is essentially it's a continuation of BYG, I think.
But it's basically BYG aesthetic, discovering like punk, funk, white funk, etc. But celluloid was also a big distributor. It was not just the records on celluloid. For example, they released the very first normal 7-inch that I'm sure Mike is very familiar with.
And stuff like Fab Five Freddy and things like the very early
I have
hip hop. Like
Struck.
I think this celluloid at least in my head, it represents the one of the greatest music melting pots of history, like New York in the early 80s.
Was Pigback, Laswell.
You can't.
I have
It's
Struck Records from Struck Records from England. They did a great compilation a couple of years ago, a double CD. I have that double CD. That there's some, like you said, Fab Five Freddy. The different styles.
Change the beat. Change the beat. The compilation, yeah. The black and white.
Yeah, it's in black and white picture. Yeah.
There's so much sound in there, like like from Latin jazz to hip hop to new wave to no wave to there's just like the melting pot of music at that time on the New York scene is I think it's unparalleled. I don't think you can find another example of that anywhere at any period of time. I don't think that there would be.
What's the name of I forget now the name of that the female singer on Z.
Lizzie
Merci des Clous, yeah.
Lizzie Mercier, she's amazing.
And when you combine that with the Belgium stuff from Crammed and Les 10 du Crépuscule, then we don't even need England. Sorry, Mike.
God, I've got a lot to catch up with here. I can see it.
But that's the thing, because earlier on we were talking about how Americans sometimes see it more as like a museum, like jazz is like a museum or something. I don't know what we said exactly, but I think that's because the charts there are so segregated. You have the R&B charts, you have the pop charts, you have the rock charts, you have the all these different charts. But when you listen to the charts in Belgium or in Europe or in France or Germany, it's just pop music all mixed together. You can have a number one rock single, followed by a number two is techno, number three is R&B. We hear a lot more. I think I'm not sure. I'm not here to judge.
I think you're dead right about that, and it's it's the radio stations as well, isn't it? So so it doesn't encourage you to sort of to look elsewhere to experiment with your musical taste, because
I said, I don't know.
Go to the place that you think you like, and that's what you get. But you don't, as you say, you don't get anything else.
Chamber. Yeah, but I think I'm like I said, I don't know how the American music stuff works, but I think you have college radio, so maybe there people discover music. We should ask our American friends about this. It might be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting. But I mean, back in the 80s, I mean, when I was at university, there was a guy, and he was the entertainment secretary at Leeds University back in the 80s, and it's called Andy Kershaw. And he went on to have a successful radio career, and he used to have an absolutely fantastic late night show on Radio 1, and he'd basically play world music, and just anything that sort of that really anything that he liked, that he thought the audience would like, and it was really refreshing stuff, because it was different, probably each program 90% of more of the stuff I'd never heard before, and it was fantastic.
I'm sure there must be Andy Kershaw's or John Peel's in America. It can be that they don't exist, but they just don't get the mainstream attention.
Yeah, but they're on. It's way more local. You have, for example, you have Electrifying Mojo in Detroit, who was like,
of course, I was thinking exactly of Electrifying.
But you had to be awake at midnight, and but your point, Frederick, I think is interesting. But I have an intuition that like I'm curious to hear what Fred and Romuald think about it. I think that in France, the charts never mattered anyways that much. That people are too stubborn in France to really be influenced as much by the charts as they might be in the UK. I might be wrong, but that's an intuition I have. What do you guys think?
Well, it's certainly like because I've lived in the UK myself, and I can remember, Top of the Pops being this event of where
Top 50.
Yes, every Thursday, 7:30.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, and in France, I mean, the top 50 was nothing basically. We had the top 50, the top 50, which
Marc Todesca et Bruno Solo.
I can't remember if
Salut les petits clous.
anyone ever paid attention to it. I mean, I certainly didn't. I mean, what do you think?
I didn't.
What was the question? If we were in France as influenced as the UK about the charts?
Yeah,
the charts matters in
yeah, not sure. We had programming in RTL. I remember the national radio, and they were ranking. They were saying it's number one. It's the number, but not sure if people were saying, "Hey, that's number one. I should get this record."
I don't think it's in our mentality.
No.
No, it's just people's mentality. You have the mainstream, and you have people who want to explore and look for other things. I think it's
but even in the mainstream in France, I think it's less in the mentality.
Maybe probably.
But on the other hand, when we are artists like Johnny Hallyday or I don't know, other Francis Cabrel, they were massively overplayed. So that maybe led to the fact that they had some success in the charts.
But let's be honest, didn't we all, when we were a kid, be ready with our tape cassette recorders and just record the tracks that we liked from the charts?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Every morning I was taping my Duran Duran songs and my Depeche Mode songs and my Michael Jackson songs. That's what
That's right. You had to be very skilled at it, didn't you? Because you had to switch it off just before the DJ comes in at the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just mentioned Johnny Hallyday, and I find him a very interesting character because I mean he was, his death was in the news in the UK. And
Mike, you realize that in France, either you're a diehard fan of him or you think he's a total joke.
Yeah.
Well, I mean this is what I want to know, because the guy gets a state funeral. The president is there, eulogizing him, and quite honestly, he was completely unknown in the UK.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard some of his stuff. Went out of my way, and I thought, no. What was he known? Was he the French Elvis? Is that what he was known as?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the French. I think I think that's the best description of him you can give. French Elvis. Yeah, that's how I've always thought.
French Elvis, Tom Jones, and Kiss.
Kiss, yeah. That's right. Then again, is the UK is a bit insular in that sense that you tend to be very UK centric. I mean, but I think most countries tend to be very insular in Europe too, But I don't think that in the UK you would necessarily hear French music or
no, you wouldn't.
Spanish music or German music on the charts or anything. But because the quality of the local scene is, I mean, UK is kind of reference point in Europe for music. Everyone agrees that Beatles, the Stones, etc. That all comes from the UK. So why would you invest any time in finding out what French pop music sounds like? You wouldn't.
You said the right word, Fred. French pop music. Yeah. There is Ed is mentioning Sacha Distel because Sacha Distel is jazz and chanson.
Yeah.
There's nothing like chanson française in the UK, which is why Serge Gainsbourg was mildly popular. But people like Johnny Hallyday, who is basically a French bastardization of pop rock, you have no need for that.
No.
Yeah, because I mean, Sasha Distel was really big in the UK, and my parents loved him.
Yeah. I'm sure Maurice Chevalier was quite big in the UK back then.
In the US
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
In the
yeah,
US as well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But
because they brought
French rock musicians.
they brought
Yeah.
something. I remember Jean-Michel Jarre. He was signing his books, and it's on a video of Monsieur Vinyl. Sorry for the reference, but he met him. And he said there's something very interesting at the time. He said, rock and roll was the revolution of the UK and the US. It wasn't something for France. It wasn't our revolution. And you guys had the original. It was like we had some girl from Mauritius trying to mimic Edith Piaf. Wouldn't have been worked. So, and we were copying the genre, and we were badly copying the genre in the 60s in France. Soul music, rock and roll music, putting silly lyrics in France. So we weren't the people that were leading the thing, like, for instance, food. So you have people from Korea, they pay 1,000 euro to be trained in Paul Bocuse kitchens, but no one is coming to France to playing rock and roll to be influenced by our.
There was one type of French rock pop that we were the best of, the Le Yaourt. We were the best
Language barrier.
Yeah. Yaourt is when French singer who can't talk or sing or in English try to mimic phonetically the English language.
Oh yeah, there's this guy in Italy did that too, but I can't remember.
Yeah, absolutely, Italy did that as well.
Yeah. I've got some a couple of Japanese compilation albums that I bought on Record Store Day probably about 5 years ago, and this is exactly what they were doing. It was sort of like they'd learned the lyrics phonetically, and it's fantastic stuff. It's this sort of 60s beat, sung by Japanese people who haven't got a clue what they're singing, and it's brilliant stuff. It's absolutely brilliant stuff.
Maybe we should introduce the VC to Dick Rivers. Huh? Maybe they will love him.
No, please no.
You should do. I'm up for that. Yes.
He has lost his mind.
Yeah.
Dick Rivers.
Eddie Mitchell, Les Chaussettes Noires, Les Chats Sauvages.
Yeah, Les Chats Sauvages, Les Chaussettes Noires. Yeah, pop. But in saying this, like in the 60s, like in France, there's quite a bit of a scene that was. If you ignore the whole, Johnny Hallyday thing, there's some great little, pop nuggets here and there that you can find, Jacqueline Taïeb and things like that, who just made like one of songs that are really kind of, weird and cool. But there's nothing in the mainstream. Really, Jacques Dutronc maybe a little bit, but. Nothing much else.
The early Chédid stuff. Louis Chédid is also, but it's kind of later anyway. Yeah.
I highlighted the comment from Russell. It's very interesting. We had some great radio hosts back in the day. We had George Lang.
Yeah, but non-mainstream. Like you and I, we talked about that the other day, Romuald. In France, I think. In the 80s, 90s, it was Bernard Lenoir who was the only one who was kind of doing that in France.
He was the John Peel of France, yeah.
Yeah. And he was decent, but not much more than that.
We had a guy in Belgium here as well. His name is Luc Janssen, and he had a show like on Saturday afternoon. And that's where I always tell that story. I was, as you do when you're 18 years old, on Saturday afternoon, you take a bath because you went out on Friday and you want to go out on Saturday night. So you take your bath Saturday afternoon, right? And I was listening to his show and I heard a song by DJ Crush. It was really abstract, very weird Japanese hip hop. And I went to the record store in my town before it closed down, and I bought a CD from DJ Crush. And that's where it started, for me. So Luc Janssen was a guy like that, like the Belgian John Peel. And I think you have it everywhere. So you must have it in America.
Sure. You in Belgium, you also have Marquise on Classic 21. I don't know if you...
Yeah, probably. I listened to Classic 21, or
Yeah.
was it called Classic 21 back then? I don't know.
Radio,
Radio 21.
Radio 21,
Radio
then
21.
Classic
I listened to
21.
that quite a lot. Yeah.
And he's
There
a
were some great
former
DJs there too.
and he's a former drummer of Machiavel. Well, it's where they were hiatus at the time. So
Okay.
he was hired at the national RTBF, which is the national radio of Belgium, and he
Mhm.
created this classic rock radio. And
Okay.
he had his amazing show, 35 years on the air every Sunday morning, talking about classic rock with more obscure, sometimes prog. And they were alternative spot for I think later in a weekend. It was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but Radio 21, which is like you have Radio 21, which is for the French speaking part.
Yep.
And for the Flemish radio stations, it was Studio Brussels. And but Radio 21 had some great shows. I remember at my previous job, they had a great show on Wednesday afternoon, and I always put it on at my job, and my colleagues went crazy. What the fuck is this weird music? You know, but it was great. It was great.
Yeah. They were playing alternative rock and
and
different
weird
genres.
hip hop and stuff like that, and electronica in the 90s, of course. Yeah, it was great.
Here, I made him. This was when back in the days he had his show in Belgium.
Ah, okay.
And, it was really cool. He was signing. He was the drummer of Machiavel, a prog band from the 70s, and I was just in Belgium.
Okay.
He said, "Yeah, you can pop by. You can attend the show." It was really cool. Yeah.
That's why you asked me if I liked Machiavel a couple of weeks ago when you first saw me.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember that.
I won't ask the question to the other Fred because I know he doesn't like Genesis. Yes, kind of prog music.
Well, it's just not my thing. I mean, I don't disrespect it. I just think that,
sure.
Like I've tried classic prog years and years ago. Well, like I went through it myself. I listened to Genesis and Yes, and then it's just the sound just doesn't do it for me. There's something about it that it doesn't resonate with me personally, but I can understand its place in music history, and I know what people love it and there's certain prog albums that I still like, but they tend to veer more towards the jazz rock end of prog than the pure symphonic or bombastic prog,
So Colosseum Valentine Suite, for instance, would be something.
Yeah. I love Colosseum. Valentine Suite is a great example because it's more. It's a British jazz rock record. Really, it's not really a prog album. I mean, if you think about the orchestration, the brass on it and stuff, it's a jazz album more than a prog album. If you think of it that way, so.
I agree.
That I love. I was listening to Nucleus a couple of days ago. The band is led by Iain Carr and had Chris Spedding on guitar, and that could be considered by some as prog, but it's really a jazz rock record, and that's what I tend to go for most, and I still love King Crimson, for example, which I think because of Robert Fripp and his influence on just about everything that follows. For me, it's still vital music, but I can't listen to Yes anymore. Except that I'm a really big fan of Owner of a Lonely Heart.
No,
exactly.
I've got 3 versions of that single. No, it's a song from my childhood. It's a nostalgia thing.
Yeah, I know. How about
even Michael Jackson sampled Owner of a Lonely Heart. So
I love that song.
If we're talking about like prog, jazz, rock, funk from Belgium, here's a mystery for me. There's a band that, like, if you're in the record collector world, is obviously the #1 band to collect in that kind of stuff from all countries, and it happens to be from Belgium, and no one talks about it. It's Placebo, of course. Placebo is
Placebo is
was also doing this label, Kamikaze, doing these weird compilations of like found objects here, like free jazz, but also kind of like found objects. But Placebo is like for hip hop guys. Placebo is perfect. Disco, funk, jazz, prog. Placebo is like the band
like,
that was.
It's like Cortex in France, a little bit in the same vein.
Even bigger in terms of how because of honestly for me it's not for me. There's something a bit too funky for me, but I can appreciate what it is, and like musically everywhere, like in the UK, there's no bands like on the level of Placebo. I mean, there are, like when you talk about what was the British band you were just talking about?
Nucleus.
Like Placebo is Nucleus on steroids.
But Nucleus didn't make that kind of sort of bright and as you said, we'll just say funky kind of, because Placebo's got a very sort of funky backdrop. The beats are funky, at times.
Yeah.
But Nucleus is it's a bit more jazzy, and it's got a less danceable kind of. But you're right, Placebo is and then in Belgium you also have like avant prog and sort of like mixed with jazz, like Cos, for example. I can think of Cos. Cos is a fantastic band. I don't know. Do you know Frederick? Have you got those records?
Cos, I've heard of it, but I don't. I've heard of it. I don't know.
The band Cos. Fantastic.
No,
as well.
I've heard the name, but
Cos.
You say Cos? COS?
Yeah.
Because they sound very sort of like Canterbury scene to me.
Yeah. It's a mix between Canterbury scene, prog, funk. It's got a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I mean, do you like Soft Machine?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert Wyatt is number one.
Yeah.
Robert Wyatt. To me, he's a favorite artist of mine, and
he's the most lovable musician ever in so many ways. In my opinion,
he is, isn't he? There's something about Robert Wyatt that you just you just can't help liking him, can you?
Yeah.
It's just
and maybe even if you're a right winger, but maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But maybe if you don't pay too much attention to the lyrics, then you're a right winger. Yeah.
I mean, he is extremely left wing.
Yeah, he's super.
Yeah. In fact, on Iain's stream last week, I showed a copy of Shipbuilding.
Yeah. That's
very, very political song. Sort of anti-Falklands War.
But you should try. I mean, and Stunty knows this album pretty well because he's talked about it. You should try Nick Mason.
Oh yeah.
Fictitious Sports. Nick Mason's. He's the drummer of Pink Floyd, but he made this album, one-off album, and it's a Robert Wyatt album basically. It's under the name Nick Mason.
It's Carla Bley, Robert Wyatt, but it's under the name of Nick Mason.
And it's just the most amazing Robert Wyatt record. Like, there's about 4 songs on there that are just like high-grade Robert Wyatt, as good as, like we're talking in the league of Rock Bottom, like very, very, very good.
Yeah, Rock Bottom's a fantastic album. I mean, this was I picked this up not so long ago.
Yeah.
Compilation, his greatest misses.
Yeah.
With his own sort of artwork when he was probably about 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I think the artwork sums it up really. I think that's Robert Wyatt for me.
Yeah. Get some people, some love in the chat for that Nick Mason album. Yeah, it really is a beautiful album. Yeah. And Frederick had some albums that he pulled out to show. What was that? What did you have?
Yeah,
I saw you getting some albums
about Placebo, and Marc Moulin. Where is? Oh my God,
it's probably the best one for me.
Marc Moulin.
Yeah.
There he is. But you all know him, right? Placebo. Yeah. But he also produced the albums for Philippe Catherine, the Belgian jazz guitarist.
Guitar player.
Have you heard of him?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to his albums again because they did a reissue campaign a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Oh, Philippe Catherine reissue!" So I bought them, and one I didn't really know it, so it was a bit of a blind buy. And I listened to it again. It's too proggy for me. This was guitars. There's some cool tracks on there, but I'm not really. But for people who like prog, this is probably very interesting. But there's one song on there. I think it was Renee Thomas. I'm not sure. It's just guitars playing together. I really like that song. It's just guitars, no other instruments. But it's not. I'm probably gonna. It's one of those albums where I should do a video like keep or get rid of. I'm probably gonna sell this one because it's not really my thing. But I really enjoyed this one, September Man. This is
Okay, I don't know that one. It's cool cover.
Yeah.
This is good. It's from 19. Let me see. I need new glasses as well. 1974. So 50th anniversary album. Yeah, and it's also produced by Marc Moulin, if I'm not mistaken. Producer Marc Moulin. Yeah. So this is I like this more than the Guitars album. So this is.
Yeah, the guitar albums of Philippe Catherine are a little bit janseniste. They're a bit ascetic, you know.
Yeah, they're very, very, very much out there. But this is yeah, this goes more. This is like This is a crossover between the Guitars album, which is very proggy, and this Stream album. His I think his debut album. No, it was his debut album.
That's a good album, the Stream. Yeah, Stream album. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's bootleg. You can't find this, and it wasn't in the official reissue campaign, so I had to buy a bootleg. Sorry, Philippe, because he's still alive. You know, he's still with us. But this is good. This is more in the trend of Placebo, I think. Yeah, this is good. But it's all Marc Moulin. You know, Marc Moulin is a genius who passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately.
His solo album, the black and white album with Sam Sufi on with Toibo with the tap dripping at the start, which is you know, you've got this little and the drum and the drum break at the start is amazing. What a great piece of music.
Yeah.
The funny thing with this Philippe Catherine record you showed is it his first one? The Stream?
I think Stream is his first one. I should look it up. I'm not sure, but I think
it didn't come out in Belgium. It came out in France, and funnily, it came out on Warner Bros. France.
This is,
if I remember correctly.
It's 1972, so it was his debut album.
Yeah. And it was on Warner Brothers. It's insane.
It's a bootleg, so it's obviously not much information.
But I mean, he's Belgian, but he lived a lot of his life in France. If I remember, I think at least he was a session guitarist for a lot of French bands at one point.
I saw him. He's still performing, and I saw him at a festival. I think just before the pandemic, 2018 or 2019. It was great. It was more, classic jazz if you want. He didn't do the prog excursions like he did in the 70s. But really good, really good. If you want to see a good jazz guitarist in Belgium, you know, go see a Philippe Catherine show. You know, it was a nice concert. Yeah.
I'm hungry. Romuald.
Yeah, I will be wrapping up. I think we reached 3 hours and 30 minutes almost.
That was interesting.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a great show. Thanks for everyone. Thank you for having joined the first live ever. Hope there will be another.
Yeah, that was lovely. I've really enjoyed this. It's so different, and brilliant.
Are you going to do this on a weekly basis, or what are your plans?
No plans. It's the first time ever. I started channel 1 year ago. I had a couple of milestones to celebrate. So now I have a great community, you know, with Stunty, with Fred, with French people, with Canadians. So Mike, of course, Mike has been very supportive from day one as well. Always friendly, commenting on my channel. Even when I was only talking about prog stuff, and I know he doesn't like that.
I do like prog stuff. It's a heavy rock that turns me off just a little bit. But I'm you know what? I'm really loving watching you build your record collection.
Yeah,
all this classic rock. It's really interesting to see you go through the process.
Yeah.
Well, what I will try and do, like I showed that Philippe Catherine record that was too proggy for me, and that I plan to sell. Every time I come on here, I will come with a prog record that I want to sell. But I want to get rid of prog. Fuck prog.
Well, that's why what the community is here for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we have a nice we have a nice community. We have people from the US, from Australia, from France. It's really cool. Yeah. What is that?
It's one of these records that I don't know. I just have it on my hand, but it's basically it's a very strange record because it's basically a commercial record for promoting a movie festival. So it's a mishmash of different soundtracks, and you got some Lucio Fulci, but they don't even advertise who's the musician. They only advertise. But he's got some great cuts here, and
the sleeve looks like a metal record. It looks like you feel like you're looking at a metal album.
And I wasn't aware that they had this Fil Fantastique in Paris.
Yeah, it was at the Rex, Le Grand Rex.
Okay, there is another festival not far from where I come from in Gérardmer, in the Vosges.
Yeah.
Oh, Gérardmer. Gérardmer represent because
you see how the fake Giger you know who did the cover for Blondie.
Oh yes,
ELP. He did the record cover of Brain Salad Surgery.
Brain Salad Surgery, wasn't it?
Yeah. He did what? He did Magma. He did Roxy Music.
Yeah.
But the Alien movies.
Yeah. But Gérardmer is a place that I know quite well because Romuald and I, we're from the same neck of the woods in France. Like, he's from Alsace and I'm from just below Franche-Comté, which is like 50 k's away or something, 60 k. Like, you're from Mulhouse,
yes, Mulhouse. Yeah,
I lived in Mulhouse for a while as well myself. So so when he says Gérardmer, I was like, yeah, we know what we're talking about. It's so funny, like small world.
Small world. So hey, once again, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for all the guys in the Peanut Gallery. I think it's been a success. Looking forward to more.
Right, it's really good.
Yeah, and stay tuned for the next chapter, as I always say.
Right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Am I going to be the last one here? No, I'm going to leave too.